Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the first meeting of 2015. This meeting is a public session of the Council Rock Board of School Directors. This meeting is being recorded by the Council Rock School District, may be recorded by members of the audience. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Brooks?
Here.
Mr. Barlick?
Here.
Dr. Foster?
I'm here.
Mr. Grupp?
Present.
Mrs. McKessie is
Here.
okay. Mrs. Sexton?
Present.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Block?
Here.
Mr. Abramson?
Here.
Mrs. McCarthy, welcome back to a new year. We're anxious to hear what's going on at Council Rock High School North.
Thank you. Not a whole lot just yet, but we have enough to report. We're very happy to be here, even though our somber colors, except for Ashley, seem to belie that fact. I'd like to introduce our panel, and they are Annie Baumure from 12th grade, Samantha Rank from 11th grade, Hadley Grunman, 10th grade, Finn Thompson, 9th grade, and Ashley Therian from MBIT. Annie would like to start.
Hi everyone and Happy New Year. Although we are almost halfway through our last year at North, the senior class is making every last minute of it count. As we are basking in the excitement of college acceptances, Disney, and all the other events and milestones we have to look forward to, it's starting to sink in that it's all coming to an end. Our second senior trip deposits were handed in last month, and our room assignments are official. In 3 months from now, we will be in Disney World with all of our best friends. Though I'm sure they will be 3 of the longest months of the year, I get more and more excited every day. The Student Executive Board's year is off to a great start with 5 successful events under our belt already. Last month, we held the Holiday Project, where we delivered gifts to underprivileged children and spent the day with them. We were each paired with a buddy between the ages of 4 and 6 and played games, made crafts, and got into the holiday spirit. The looks on their faces as they unwrapped their gifts were unforgettable. It's such a rewarding experience that I'm truly going to miss next year. SEB is now cracking down as we begin to plan multiple events happening this spring. Talent show auditions will be held next week, and the performers will showcase their acts on February 4th. Although it is far away, plans for this year's Rockathon are already underway, and today we selected this year's charity at our student government meeting. The proceeds will go to Have a Catch for Barb, which is a charity honoring the memory of a student at North whose mother lost her battle with cancer. We are looking forward to helping such an amazing cause. Council Rock Education Week will be held January 20th to 23rd. Parents are invited to come in and observe an average day for their child at the high school. And Sock and Buskin performed their production of George Bernard Shaw's Heartbreak House in November, and they are now beginning to put together their freshman-sophomore project and another production coming this March. Thank you, and here's Sammy.
Thanks. Good evening. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season and a great start to the new year. Many activities are quickly approaching at North. In just 2 weeks, ASVAB testing will be held at the school. Students will be tested in math and verbal skills, as well as mechanical knowledge, electronics, and many other areas. The test results will provide the students with the opportunity to explore the ASVAB Career Exploration Program and see a variety of occupations that match their interests. In addition, midterms are scheduled for the week of January 19th. Students will be tested in math, science, and their chosen world language. The January SATs will be held the same week on January 24th. Aside from this, North will be holding an electives fair this upcoming Monday, January 12th. The fair will give students the opportunity to see the many electives offered at North, as well as a chance for them to begin thinking about their course selection for next year. Program planning for the 2015-2016 school year is already beginning. North has also been involved with many charitable events. SAD held their annual candy cane sale to raise funds for their 3 charities: SAD National, Broadway Cares, and Athletes Helping Athletes. North's choir collected over 400 pounds of canned goods during the holiday season. Lastly, the junior class is busy preparing for prom and finalizing the theme, as well as preparing to take the SATs. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.
Hello all, Happy New Year. I hope you had a relaxing winter break. With the start of the new year comes many bustling schedules and activities here at North. Before break in the music department, the choir and the orchestra played a fantastic winter concert. The choir also competed in the More FM Christmas Choir competition with their rendition of Santa Baby. Although they did not make it this year, they are hoping to try again next year, but only with your help. So make sure to tell your friends and family to support North twice next year. The band is getting ready for their trip to Spain, Italy, and France, which is quickly approaching. It sounds like a lot of fun and should be a great experience. We do not yet know where the choir will be headed next year, so they are currently holding a competition to guess the destination of their trip. The music department's small ensemble concert is next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. In sports news, the winter season is well underway. Both the boys and the girls basketball teams won against their rival, Council Rock South, in a doubleheader on Tuesday night. The girls won 56-53 in double overtime without two of their key players, and now both teams are 4-1 in league play. The wrestling team also pinned down a win over Harry S. Truman and are ranked third in the SOL conference with a 3-0 record. The swim team also recently won 107-42 against Ben Salem. The girls team is also looking forward to hoping to win their 8th consecutive SOL league title. In 10th grade news, the winner of the Mustache Bash Student versus Teachers was Mr. Biglin for the second year in a row. The competition was for a great cause, so thank you to everyone who donated and competed. Thank you and see you in March. Here's Finn Thompson.
As for the 9th grade class, we haven't had much going on for us. We participated in multiple events by the Student Executive Board, such as the Holiday Project, and are very excited for the talent show. What we are most excited for is the skiing trip that we will be embarking on. At the end of February, 9th and 10th grade students will be going to Jack Frost. There will be skiing, snowboarding, multiple types of competitions, tubing, and a dance at the end of the night. Today, the 10th grade class had their assembly for the trip, and tomorrow we will have ours. The 9th grade class is extremely excited for our first school trip of the year. Moving on to clubs at Council Rock North, the Ski and Snowboard Club is getting into action. Starting this week, the club will be going to Blue Mountain on 5 Friday nights during January and February to do as their name implies, ski and snowboard for 4 hours before returning to North. The 240-member club is the most popular here at North, so it isn't difficult to imagine that many people are going to have a great time over the next couple of months. Meanwhile, the Council Rock North debate team is being honored with very prestigious awards. The debate team is another extremely popular activity that competes around twice a month and at nationally recognized weekend tournaments. It is coached by Mr. Brisky, our very devoted coach. The award is known as the Diamond Award. Each coach can earn up to 5 at a time, and it is a twofold award. First, Mr. Brisky is receiving an award for our individual achievements, reflecting the entire team's effort and successes. We earn points for competing everywhere, and the more active and involved at the national or state level, our prestige rises. The second is a reward for his personal dedication to the team. He is receiving 1 diamond and is one of 5 coaches in the Bucks, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties who are receiving one. Now that he has earned one, which will be awarded at the national tournament, which he will not attend, he must wait 5 years before he can earn another. Finally, our school FBLA club just competed at the Bucks County Regional Leadership Conference. They had over 70 members placed in the top 10, competing in over 45 events, including winning 18th first places, 14 second places, and 4 third places in both individual and team events. This performance adds credibility to the CR North FBLA motto, "We mean business." Ranked 10th in Pennsylvania, the 150-member group has been ranked by the PA FBLA as one of the top 10 chapters in performance, membership, and leadership for 8 consecutive years. Board members can follow the successes of the CR North Club by joining the state's PA FBLA Facebook webpage. It's another way for the board members to be part of this club and see them in action. They just added to their list of accomplishments by winning one of the national promotional video challenges today, scoring the most votes ever cast for a promo video about staying connected. Also, please note that the team was all 9th graders. Thank you, and I'm going to pass this on.
Hello, and my name is Ashley Thurin. I'm a senior at Council Rock North. I'm a third-year student in the Public Safety Program at Middlebucks Institute of Technology. MBIT's annual open house was held on Wednesday, January 7th from 7 to 9. Prospective students, parents, and community members joined us to explore MBIT's 23 career and technical programs, including our newest programs for 2015, sports therapy and exercise science. The 2015-2016 Program of Studies book and application were sent to all 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students in our 4 sending districts. Applications are due to MBIT by April 1st. Skills USA District 2 competitions are coming up quickly. MBIT will be sending over 50 students to compete in the contest held at Central Monco Technical High School. I would like to remind the community that they can learn more about the latest happenings at MBIT by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, and viewing our videos on YouTube. On December 19th, MBIT came to our school to talk to the freshmen about all of the programs MBIT has to offer. Interested freshmen will be visiting MBIT in a couple of weeks. I look forward to reporting to you at March's board meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. McCarthy, as always, wonderful representation at Council Rock High School North. Thank you very much for braving the cold and coming out to work with us this evening. And
Thank you.
there is a little bit of snow in the forecast for next week, just in case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Klein, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. A couple announcements, Mr. Block, not many. As one of the students on the advisory panel mentioned, Council Rock Education Week is scheduled for all of our schools during the week of January 20th through 23rd. A combination of classroom visitations and school workshops are scheduled across the school district. Individual schools have information on their websites and should have sent a listserv out to parents, but you can look at the web posting for the times and schedules at each of the schools. Council Rock South Swim and Dive Team is sponsoring a clothing drive on Saturday, January 10th, this Saturday, from 10 o'clock to 3 p.m. to benefit Lawrence Angels and the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Bucks County. The team will accept clothes, bedding, stuffed animals, shoes, and other soft items. I'm not sure what other soft items are, but if you have another soft item, bring it along. Please drop off all of those donations at the main entrance of Council Rock South. Council Rock Education Foundation is, along with the Council Rock Coalition for Healthy Youth, are combining once again to offer another part of their speaker series. This segment is called Smartphones to Social Media, and will take place on Tuesday, January 27th at 7 p.m. in Newtown Middle School. The featured speakers include Matt Fredrickson, we've heard of him, Director of Information Technology, and Laura Zyla, Counselor and Cares Coordinator at Newtown Middle School. For more information and other events in the Raising Great Kids Speaker Series, you can log on to the Council Rock website at www.creducationfoundation.org. The Raising Great Kids Community Speaker Series is presented jointly by the Council Rock Coalition of Healthy Youth and the Council Rock Education Foundation, and is made possible with support of the Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania. Another note for the foundation, they will be once again offering their small electronics recycling program that is done in conjunction with the Council Rock Green Team. So if you got small electronics over the holidays and you have used electronics that you were looking to discard, hold on to them, because within the next week we will begin to put bins around the schools and the Chancellor Center, and we will collect small electronics as part of this recycling program, where the benefits of that recycling program will actually go to help the Council Rock Education Foundation. I lost Mrs. McClendon. Okay, so, no, it's okay. I was just going to do a quick report on CR Cares and the Martin Luther King Day of Service, but maybe we'll revisit that a little bit later. Okay? Thank you.
We'll move to public comment now. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. We would ask that you limit your comments to no longer than 3 minutes. Please consider the fact that there may be young children in the audience or watching this broadcast live on CRTV when speaking. It is our goal to maintain a respectful environment so that members of our community have an equal opportunity to address the board without interruption. While the board welcomes your ideas and will consider them in deliberating an issue, we may not respond to your comments or questions. I've got 2 names here. I believe there will probably be more. I apologize up front if I mispronounce it. Nance Banner? Oh. Is that Nancy Carroll? Doesn't look like Nancy Carroll to me, but okay. Can I borrow your glasses?
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough. This time last year, I came before the board and said that my New Year's resolution was to talk to you about taking off the trailers until you took all the students out of the trailers. And tonight I'm here to hear the details about that. Although redistricting, building permanent space inside rooms, and relocating special ed students are all ways in which you can take off trailers, I'm a little bit concerned about how many students are going to be in Holland Elementary that are special ed. So I don't know what those numbers are going to be. I'm here to listen tonight. If somebody has what the ratio of those special ed students would be to the regular ed students, I would appreciate it. Secondly, I'm going to need a New Year's resolution this year. And I'm toying with a lot of things, but I'm leaning towards a comprehensive technology plan, similar to the capital plan, that has a 5-year outlook, so that you would take a look at what we're doing now, where we want to go, and how it's going to cost, and how you're going to pay for it. I have been up to this mic several times. I have concerns that a lot of schools do not have the access they need to technology because they don't have the points inside. And I know that we're addressing that at the high schools this summer, and that when we build the 2 new middle schools, that will be addressed, but that's 4 years out. And that the 3 new elementary schools, there'll be access in every classroom. But a lot of our schools do not have that, and I want to know how you're going to address it. And I think it's important in today's world that we have the technology that the students need. So I thank you so much for forging ahead to take off the trailers. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Jillian Ames?
Jillian Thacker Ames, Newtown Township. I'm actually not here tonight to speak to you about capital planning, despite the fact that I do have 2 children at Wrightstown Elementary School. I'm actually here as an executive board member of Citizens for Education to offer concerns about a potential change in the scheduling of the RA period at the middle school level. At the present time, RA period at the middle school level happens at the beginning of each school day from 8 to 8:30 a.m. It's my understanding that in response to lower math testing scores at Richboro Middle School, a suggestion has been made to move RA period to the end of the school day so that higher functioning math students from the elementary school can be brought up to the middle school level under a belief that these higher functioning students may help increase the test scores. Citizens for Education first expressed concern over this proposal back in October 2014 during a meeting with Allison McGann, Lee Hausline, Barry Desco, and myself. And at that time, we were told that this option was not yet fully vetted and had only been recently discussed at a principal's breakfast. Unfortunately, we've just received information that the middle school principals have been instructed to work this out amongst themselves to come to an agreement on scheduling, and that there is a strong push from the principal at Richboro Middle to move the RA period to the end of the school day. Citizens for Education has some significant concerns over this potential change. Currently, the morning RA period offers a number of benefits for each student in the building. Academically, students have an opportunity to seek help from available teachers in a secondary clinic setting and can make up missed exams or classwork from absences. Special ed students have the opportunity to meet with teachers to plan out each day as required in their IEPs. During this time, they can also receive assistance with difficult homework and receive necessary emotional support to give them tools with which they can successfully tackle their daily responsibilities. Co-curricular music education is taught in choir, band, and orchestra lessons, and various extracurricular clubs hold meetings during this time. Moving RA period to the end of the school day will significantly impact all of these existing opportunities for middle school students. From an academic perspective, there may be a lack of teacher availability for clinic, test makeup, or other assistance, especially for those teachers who leave school early with sports teams going to away games, and those teachers who need additional prep period to complete required grading. It eliminates the opportunity for students to catch up on missed work before the next lesson is taught. RA period at the end of the day will impact the special ed population, causing a failure in fulfillment of current IEP requirements, a loss of opportunity for special ed students to plan for each day at the beginning of each day, and a loss of opportunity to receive assistance with homework or other tasks. From the co-curricular perspective, choir, band, and orchestra that are currently open to all students will, for the first time, not be available to those who are on sports teams. And there's also the potential loss of extracurricular activities as a result of teacher inavailability for club meetings. There's also great concern about moving the RA period to the end of the day and the effect it will have on the drop period at each middle school. Having RA period at the end of the school day will combine the 30 minutes of RA with the 45 minutes of drop, making a full 75 minutes at the end of each school day of non-academic instruction time in a marginally supervised environment. Students are more likely to leave school early when they know they have nothing to do for over an hour at the end of each school day. And in cases of early dismissal in the revised model, there wouldn't be RA. Citizens for Education urges the school board to become involved in this discussion so that all aspects of the impact of this proposal are properly addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. I apologize for the mispronunciation.
No problem. Everybody does it.
That's all I have on the list, but if you have public comment, please come forward, state your name and town, please.
Hello, Jason Funk from Wrightstown. I'm actually here to comment on the capital plan. I just had a few points. First, regarding school reconfiguration, as I'm sure the school district is aware. Under Title 22 of PA Code, Section 4.441C, Scheduling, school districts shall obtain approval of the Department of Education prior to changing school configuration. I've seen nothing about this approval in the milestone schedule. Also, the Department of Education will not even consider plans until June 14th, but yet milestone calls for commencing work the day after June 14th. Part of this approval process requires that the school board minutes plainly and clearly supporting this decision, meaning reconfiguring a school in the district, be sent to the Department of Education. While I know the board has asked the administration to come up with a plan to remove modulars, the board itself has not discussed the ramifications of only one elementary school being K-4 while the rest of the district remains K-6. In light of that, I truly don't understand how the school district can even ask or approach the Department of Education for approval without the quote-unquote plainly and clearly, minutes plainly and clearly supporting such a decision. Secondly, and more along those lines, I also asked, has the district even looked into other school districts that have a similar setup? Have we researched other schools even in this state that have one of their numerous schools as a separate or a different setup as far as grade configuration? Does it even exist? Second point, this plan that you're about to float this evening may indeed violate the Pennsylvania Constitution for rights of parents and taxpayers and students under equal protection of the Constitution. Both strict scrutiny test as well as rational relationship tests. Under strict scrutiny, it applies to laws and practices that discriminate on basis of, among other things, some fundamental right. The PA Constitution, Section 14, discusses public school systems. The government, which the board is, must show that it has a compelling interest, in other words, an extremely important reason for treating people differently on this basis. With that in mind, I would ask, what is your extremely important reason for treating 330 students in your district different than the rest? Other than removing modulars, I see absolutely no extremely important reason. Therefore, I would suggest, instead of moving forward with this plan that is about to be floated, that you take another look at leaving things, at least where, as far as Wrightstown is, as be for now until you can come up with a better plan. And I would strongly urge both the school board and the solicitor to look into these points. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any further public comment?
Amy McIntyre, Newtown. I just had a few comments with regard to the concept of making exceptions. And when the discussion of the removal of modulars came up, and a lot of people knew that Wrightstown, it would be more of a predicament than other schools, we had approached, some of the board members about the idea of leaving Wrightstown with its modulars. And we were told that an exception would just not be made for Wrightstown with regards to the removal of modulars. Yet now we're seeing that it wasn't okay to make that exception, but it's okay to make an exception with regards to our district's elementary education model. This, of course, makes no sense to me. If an exception can be made, it should be the least disruptive, consequential one, and that would be leaving a modular or two at Wrightstown. I really think just 1 or 2 modulars would make it a perfectly comfortable experience. I would once again argue that all of the students could in fact fit within Wrightstown's walls. I calculated square footage at its peak, including the modular square footage. All the board members know about this already, but Wrightstown was at a similar square footage per pupil previously, and during that time they won a National Blue Ribbon Award, so one would draw the conclusion that it wasn't a detriment to the students' academic experience during that time. Every other elementary school which needs to remove modulars is taking advantage of atypical space for instruction to achieve the goal of being modular free. Wrightstown needs to be granted the same opportunity to get creative with interior space to bring its students inside the building. If Wrightstown is given the opportunity that every other elementary school in the same predicament is being given, all the students can in fact fit snugly inside of Wrightstown. The Wrightstown community wants to be treated like every other school community in the district. Making Wrightstown the only K-4 in Council Rock will have many negative impacts on the Wrightstown community and children, while every other elementary school remains intact. Equity and parity were common topics to come up at board meetings this summer, and this decision seems to fly in the face of those concerns. And my last statement was one kind of in response to the idea that a vote is not required based on your motions to approve Mr. Klein's presentation to remove modulars. In light of the state regulations, I think a vote would be prudent. I think that the state wants to see that the majority of the board would support a reconfiguration in order to grant you approval to do so. But for what it's worth, Wrightstown residents like Jason and others who are interested in continuing to pursue the regulations of this reconfiguration will have my support and cooperation.
Thank you, Amy.
Hello, Jeff Troy, Wrightstown, Pennsylvania. Referring to my phone just for notes, so sorry to be rude with technology. I'm also just thirding the opinion to give Wrightstown a bit more time to explore options for keeping the school whole. I feel that at this point there are still many things to explore and understand. Recently a story came that in talking to some parents from Newtown Elementary, that many are in the dark about this process, that they are not even aware that this combination of schools could happen. As we were talking through, and as Mark Klein came to Wrightstown to talk, many new concepts came up, the effects on the children who are staying at Wrightstown. There's a lot to learn from the process of speaking to the parents of Wrightstown. I would assume the same would come through the process of speaking to those parents of Newtown Elementary as well. So I'm in support of keeping a few modulars open at Wrightstown. My very basic argument for that would be, we are in this case treating Wrightstown Elementary different than every other school in the district. And if you ask me as a parent of 4 children at Wrightstown Elementary, if I would like to keep it as different, I'd say having modulars with children in them is my vote for having a different type of school than having it be the only K-4 school in the district. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further public comment? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our discussion item, Mr. Klein's presentation of the 5-year capital plan.
Good evening. In consultation with the entire administrative team, we've put together some project charts, milestones, and guidelines for the capital planning process, as was frameworked on November 6th by the board through a set of motions. The project chart that is around the building, and you'll see in a minute, but you can't necessarily see it with the details, so that's why we put some of the tripods up there, is based on the motions that we worked together on November 6th of 2014. It shows what is a classic Gantt chart, although I've found that a lot of people don't know what a Gantt chart is. So we're calling it a project chart, and it's actually a timeline for the various things that are part of the capital plan that the board passed through motions on in November. All of these things are based on timelines and priorities that we have worked on right now. They're not exactly in sync yet because there's still a lot more work to do, but those initial timelines are there for the board to look at in terms of the next 5 to 6 years of bringing a lot of these issues to fruition. There is a full 14-page modular reduction plan that is now posted to the web. I'll show you a link for it in a little bit, but it shows in a far more detail than I will give you tonight all of the different changes that we're expecting to do inside and through programs in the schools to actually effectuate the change in modulars. And as you would have expected, from November until now, there have been an ongoing set of meetings. I think Doug and I haven't left in any given day a meeting that had to do with one of these issues. If it wasn't modular reductions, it was ongoing planning for some of the other facets of this plan. So know that we've been working forward on this since that November meeting, and I think we have at least the framework of this plan in place that deals with all of these different issues. So with my apologies, that's why we put that out there, but it is on the web too, and I will make sure that people can see it, and I'm going to pull it apart in component parts, so don't expect me to do anything other than just show you. This is the project chart that would show you the project timelines over the next 5 to 6 school years that would effectuate the many different facets of the capital plan that the board passed. I'll pull it apart by piece. So each of those, if you can see on the left, are numbered 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and they will correspond to this part of the presentation. So each of those parts that are there will get copied here. So 1.1 is remove modular classrooms to elementary and middle school. I know that's the part that many of the people in the audience are here most particularly to take a look at. That part is the actual, and I'm going to show us a couple slides that follow this to talk about how we would actually go from the current number of modulars that we're using for programs down to 0 beginning in the 15-16 school year. So I'll talk about that in a minute. The second part of the 1.2 of this was to move the Network Operations Center. We should have a piece of information from the Schrader Group sometime in the next week or two that will begin to take a look at the formalities of moving the Network Operations Center out of LSAC. So I'll delay any specifics on that until we see the Schrader report. And obviously one of the things we need to do is we start to downsize. When I call it LSAC, what I mean is the space at 661 Penn Street, which is leased space that we use, that we rent from or lease from the Law School Admissions Council. So LSAC is a reference to that building, 661 Penn Street. As we downsize our use there, we're going to be taking away some very important parts of the school district's both storage and receiving capabilities. And so part of this plan is to try to start to develop where and how we'll replace those pieces, whether it's actually a replacement facility or whether we go back to what we did before this facility was part of the Council Rock infrastructure, and that is drop shipped to buildings rather than to a centralized warehouse. So here's an overview of the modulars in Council Rock. As of right now, there are 37 modulars in place, but not all of those modulars are being used for student programs. Some of them are actually used for storage, and some of them are just simply offline over the past couple of years. So now you can see that in those various schools, elementary and middle, you have an array of modular usage from 3s and 4s to 5s at Rolling Hills, Wrightstown, and Newtown. 26 modulars right now house some kind of program for students against the total of 37 that exists still in our schools. With respect to a modular reduction plan, which once again is more formally and more detailed on the web, the interior renovations of various schools will begin to bring programs from outside in. So Rolling Hills and Hillcrest will have some interior renovations done, some changes, small changes, but changes that will actually affect infrastructure that will allow you to bring programs that are outside into modulars inside into the school. Same thing with Newtown Middle School and Richboro Middle School. Most of them talk about our really reutilization of different spaces. In Newtown Middle School, we'll capture back a technology lab to become a classroom. We're talking about spaces that are basically health and language at Newtown, and at Richboro, there's a small group instruction out there, and then English and social studies as part of one of the teams that we'll actually bring inside. At Richboro Elementary School, we'll create space there through the movement of a autistic support program from Richboro to Holland Elementary School. And so the movement of those classrooms, which we've worked on already with parents and we've begun to put that process together, will free up some space inside in Richboro to allow us to bring the 4 programs that are outside inside to that school. Obviously, for many of the people here and for a lot of the work that we've done in December to talk with the school community, the administration's recommendation is to move the 5th and 6th graders from Wrightstown to the Newtown Elementary School for the beginning of the 2015-16 school year. That would allow us to recreate Wrightstown as a K-4 facility, and that K-4 facility would manage the number of kids in there in a very effective way by putting new interior space in Wrightstown to accommodate some of the outside programs to the inside of Wrightstown. It's important to know that, yes, Newtown Elementary has the requisite space. The number of kids that would be in that building would be less than what we had in the 1990s initially at Newtown Elementary School. So there would be space and accommodations for the Newtown Elementary School community. We've done a lot of work on this already. We've met with the parent groups at Wrightstown twice to solicit information. I know we've also solicited dissent and concerns about this, but we've done our best to put together some of the things that I know parents were concerned about: a detailed transition plan, a set of questions and answers that have evolved from first meeting to second meeting that talk about some of the issues. And I know that we're ready to work tomorrow to begin that process and to begin to integrate some of these ideas with staff members and ultimately to work with parents and kids through this process. So once again, the details of all of this are on the website, and I'll go here quickly just to show people. When you go on the Council Rock webpage and you scroll down right next to the Council Rock South choir pictures here, by the way, South and North went to the White House. You'll be able to see all those pictures. But in red on the right-hand side are 2 capital planning links. The first one has all of the information that we loaded in there from July to the end of October, November. But this second link is the one that now has the letter that I sent out to the community and the link for the modular reduction plan and the capital planning project timeline, which is the Gantt chart I just showed you. This presentation that I'm showing you this evening will get loaded to that tomorrow morning, so you'll be able to see all three of this important information together in one place. Moving on with the parts of that plan, 1.4 of that Gantt chart was about removing the remaining storage modulars. The board allowed us to keep no more than 2 in various places to do a transition part for the storage, most particularly things like books and science equipment, but that we know that by the 2016-17 school year we need to get those offline too. So this is just another facet of finding storage space and making sure that we can move some things around and more effectively deal with how we're moving information, storage equipment, books, and science equipment in and around our elementary schools. The other parts of this now, 1.5 through the next 2 or 3, are parts of the new the building projects at the middle school. So 1.5 effectuates the motion that would allow us to design, bid, and then build a Newtown Middle School. Doug has taken the lead on that, and I'm going to ask you, Doug, actually to pull a microphone over and just give the board an update on where we are with both the design of Newtown Middle School, and then I'll flip to the next slide when you get there for the Holland Middle School renovation.
Sure. Yeah, the design team is working diligently on moving forward with schematic design and getting drawings together so that we can get to the approval process. Right now we're looking at long-term bidding the project in February of 16. We're looking at construction in May of 16, completing and occupying the Newtown Middle School, which would be built next to the existing middle school. Up here it says December of 18. Our goal is to actually move that back closer to July of 18 and occupy the building for the 18-19 school year. And then the demolition of the existing building would take place after that. So from hopefully July to 18 to July 19, we'd be demolishing the existing building and restoring the site and recovering some of the athletic fields. According to the schedule that's up there, it could be the December to November of the next year. So we're going to work on making that better as we go.
Holland's next.
Oh, sure. Holland Middle School is a little bit different in that that project started a little behind the Newtown Middle School. The design team is working on catching up, but again, they're comfortable that they'll be going out to bid with that project again around February of 2016, starting construction in May of 2016. And we'll be careful to offset the bidding of those two projects so that the group of people that bid one job, if they're not successful in getting that project, would still have an opportunity to go after the next project. So we still maintain good competition as we bid that project. That project would be scheduled to be completed in July of 2019. So at that point, I guess the chart can continue.
And as part of that, at the conclusion of the Holland Middle School process, which is now out to January 2019, we would look at the redistricting of Richboro Middle School and then a conversation about the repurposing of Richboro Middle School. But there's not a lot of detail on that yet since it's far enough out to not necessarily be in a position to plan for that. It'll be more specific as we move forward. Another board goal was to close the Twining Ford Road facility, and we would certainly want to do that. Once again, we're looking at the potential of doing that as we get to the Richboro Middle School and the potential of repurposing. We could do that earlier. A lot of it would depend on how and where we'd have the potential to move that function to another place in the school district. 110 is just a placeholder for what is an ongoing process for the board and the school district, and that is summer capital projects. This year, Doug has already presented to the board an array of capital projects that will allow us to maintain what is our custodial responsibility for our facilities, blacktop repair, sidewalk repair, interior repairs for many of our schools. 111 on the Gantt chart talks about an ongoing responsibility that you asked for in the motion to continue to look at the option to redistrict and consolidate elementary schools. You've set up a specific benchmark for that to happen every October, and so we'll begin to do that work. We certainly are going to look at elementary enrollment, and as part of that, the board has asked for some form of a utilization report. We have some ideas about how we can start to do that, where we can go building by building with the principal and talk to you about what classrooms, what space is used and in what way. So we have a better sense at the conclusion, hopefully, of this year about each of our schools and how space is being used. As part of, again, the repurposing and the movement or migration out of the 661 Penn Street building, we have to start to look for the potential of relocating the Sloan and the Achieve programs, but there's no current action necessary now because next year we'll be able to fit them within a revised floor plan for the 661 Penn Street building. and both Sloan and Achieve should be able to stay there and comfortably fit in the confines of that building. We will need from beginning next year to take a look at how to relocate that program if we begin to talk about changing or ending that lease in 2017. And then annually, along with the conversation about redistricting and elementary enrollment and secondary enrollment, you'll be looking at this master plan as a chart over time. I'm sure we'll be looking at it more than annually. You'll be looking at it almost perpetually from this point forward in finance and facility meetings as we start to look forward to the various responsibilities that we have to feed information to you, to the board and the community, and for us to begin to get ready for these rather significant changes, both with respect to modular reduction and to the renovation and building projects. I know this is hard to see. Again, it will be captured, but it is just the beginning part of a financial that Bob has done. He's reported to the board a number of times about the financial piece that we have for here. I think I would speak for both of us that we're comfortable that financially, within what we know is the realm of expenditures and expectations over the next 3 to 5 years, we can afford what we've actually put in front of you. The one line that I'll point to is the 1.5 million, which is the additional revenue from increase in real estate taxes. And what that 1.5 represents is the amount that in each given year we may need for both increased costs in PSERS and debt service. But I also draw your attention to where the fund balance is, so at any point in time, a variety of expenditure changes, new revenues, and fund balance could offset that 1.5 even more significantly. So this is just a beginning overview. Bob, you want to say anything more about it at this point?
I think you've seen several long presentations on this, and the number that Mark was talking about really involves the long spreadsheets when I calculated the retirement, and also then calculated and showed how we would fund the increasing debt service. That is really where that number is, and it's just over 1% tax increase each of the next, on this shows 6 years. And that provides then for future debt services. If you remember, it goes up and it goes back down. So it would put us in place to be able to finance additional needs once the 2 middle schools are completed.
So what you have on the spreadsheet here, that you have increase in debt service, and then you have increase in PSERS and debt service. So when you compare those numbers, it really looks like the bulk of this is the PSERS.
Yes, the first 2 years you will see those are where the PSERS rate, which is right now it's at 21.4%, is going to exceed 30%. After that, it's going to stay at 30% of payroll for the foreseeable future, into 20 years from now and things like that. So the annual increase is going to slow. This is at salaries at a level salary amount. For that increase you'll see in 2020, 2021, we will have no increase in our budget because the rate, the retirement is not going up. It's going to stay at 32%. The next year it's going to be at 32% again. So that's what that is showing there. So we have been into this. This is, I think, the 3rd or 4th year where we had these hyper numbers going up. We started at 8.65% of payroll, and now we're at 21.4. We're going to get up to over 30%, and that's going to take us the next 2 budgets. And after that, it's going to level off, but it's still going to be at a high rate. I hope I explained that and didn't get into too much detail.
That was a good job. I think what I'd like to do is defer a lot of the financial conversation to the Finance Committee, but this is just an important part of talking. Members of the public have talked about financing and affording the plan. I think anyone that looks at this can see that Bob's done a really good job, and in fact, when we looked at actually debt service alone, Dr. Foster, you'll remember that presentation because you were part of it too. It was really no more than $250,000 a year that would be expected just to be able to afford the debt service, and some of that is a helpful reliance on the fund balance that we're able to use to help offset some of those pieces. And then the only caution I would have, I know Bob would do it too, is that not built into here would be any other expenditures that the district would have to face, and it's offset by what could be increases in revenues from a variety of different sources that occur that we see in any given year, both ups and downs, but mostly ups lately. that's the brief overview. What questions can I answer?
This is a simple one, Mr. Klein, and maybe you explained it, but can you just tell me what the difference in colors represent on this, just so I can understand?
Is there a difference in colors, or was that just your?
There's definitely a difference in color.
No, I know that. I mean, I just didn't know if it had meaning or not. Doug put the initial Gantt chart together, so I'll defer to Doug. Mr. Taylor, any change, any reason why things are blue, green, yellow, and purple?
There was, but as this thing has been modified a few times, I think some of the colors have taken on their own life. The blues were, at one point, more of the construction-related projects, and the master plans for the green, and the capital projects have changed color, so I'm not sure what happened exactly, but
There's some kindergarten kids
there
coloring it.
there was a methodology.
The answer is no right now?
Right now, it's no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right?
I just want to be sure, so on 1.5, the change in colors in that single line has no significance? It's partly blue, then it is brown or whatever? That June 18th, does that mean something, that break?
Does that indicate the possibility of pulling it up like you mentioned?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened with the color, to be honest.
But that does represent a time frame where you had wanted to accelerate the project so we could occupy the building earlier.
That is, Doug. Is it the potential that that project could actually move back a little bit from where we are?
What would you do to speed it up? What are the opportunities?
I think what's happened is, as we sit with the design team and we talk about the timelines and what the project's looking like, it's realized that we can advance the approval process, and it looks like from a construction standpoint, we can pull that timeline in a bit and actually reduce that to a more reasonable number of months to get it done.
So the more straightforward we make this building, the easier it might be to build.
That's
and
correct.
the faster it can get done.
So consistent with that, I noticed you said go to bid on these projects in February of 16?
Yes.
It seems like, I don't understand the process, but that seems like a long time to get to where we can bid. Is that an opportunity to expedite, or they're just site surveys and a lot of work that goes in prior to that?
Well, yeah, along with the documentation, if it were just documenting the projects, we could go out to bid quicker than that. But there's the approval process through the townships, through the Department of Education, through Bucks County Conservation District, and likely PennDOT on Newtown Middle School. So there's a lot of other outside agencies that are going to dictate how quickly we can get that done. Certainly, if we could move that up, we will, and we'll continue to monitor that as we go. We're pushing the team, along with Dewey, to move forward as quickly as possible.
Andy, I would sooner take delays in going to bid and get the best pricing possible as compared to going to bid early and suffering more change orders. The whole nature of change orders is you are captive to the person or the organization to whom you gave the bid, so you don't always get the best pricing. So I would sooner, having my druthers, I would sooner go to bid with much better documents, because then the coordination of the trades also becomes much more enforceable than suffering through change orders, which not only have the expense of the change order, but then the flow-through impact on, and Dewey could do it, but the flow-through impact of managing the difference in the trades. Having done this with a couple schools, that's been my experience.
That makes sense. Any questions or comments?
Just as a final comment, Mr. Block.
And I did have a question. I'm sorry, Mr. Klein.
Okay, go ahead.
So you had mentioned talking about continuing to explore the option to redistrict and consolidate elementary schools and getting together with the principals. What I would suggest doing is, if we can have a look at that in the spring, potentially have a point of view as to what redistricting and school consolidation would look like by the end of the spring. So that kind of goes on the plan. Not necessarily a decision in stone, but if we could try and get that work done in the spring and then validate that, if you would, with the enrollment numbers in the fall.
I can talk to you more about that. Our plan is to try to do some of this efficiency work between now and the spring to give you a sense of how schools are being used, and we're Mrs. McClendon and I are already starting on that, and our sense, at least initially, and we can talk more about this either here or at a facilities meeting, is to actually do that work and then have the principals come in some of those meetings and actually talk to you about how their buildings are run, and actually have you ask questions about, there's a place there, how do you use that, and how's it being used, and is it being used effectively, so that you can actually not only have us work with you and Doug from a facility standpoint, but listen to Joe McClay or Sam Smith or Joe Kingston talk to you about how those buildings are currently being used and when kids are moving in and out of classrooms and things like that.
Right, because I feel that we as a board have struggled with making decisions in that area because of the different points of view on the different information, and that's going to allow us to get aligned, so the sooner we...
And the people that are best able to talk to you about those buildings are the ones that are in charge of running it on a regular basis.
That's great.
Mark, the other thing which, and if you mention it, there's a lot of data processing while you're speaking. Removing the modulars. There's a component of that which has some internal construction. We're going to put in some partition walls, we're going to take out partition walls, there's some HVAC, there's going to be some plumbing because we have to remove sinks. And in your detailed plan, each of those is answered at this point from a dollar perspective with a TBD. So I guess between you and Doug,
we have money.
This question was coming. Do we have I'm not asking for the schematic of the dollars now, but as the plan is going to be delivered sometime in August, when do you think we'll have a schematic, a seat of the pants guess on what those pricings might be?
We have, when we approved the summer projects for this year now, we had allocated money for that piece of the project. So we had an allowance for that plus the money that we planned for the demolition of the modulars and the site restoration. On Monday, meeting with the architect and all of the respective principals for these projects to sit down and start developing the actual program and the true scope of work now for these projects. Okay. So as we start to put those drawings together and prepare those, I'll be able to compare those to what the estimated project budget was to what I believe it will be based on field investigation. So I'd say we're probably a month or so away from, 2 months from giving you that answer.
That number. The other thing, and I asked, you know, there had been a proposal from Wrightstown about an alternate configuration or maintaining the modules or using, and one of my criticisms of that had been that I was concerned that some of the changes that were to implement that, you know, community-based recommendation might trip us into other zoning and pre-existing conditions would no longer, we'd pass some threshold. We're relatively certain that these changes we're going to make to existing schools are not going to push us into the same dilemma, pulling the modules offline, or?
I'm fairly confident based on the relationships we have with the governing authorities. Certainly we're going to talk to them about the projects. There's going to be some permitting required, but I don't think that any of these will trigger us into a level of alteration that would require anything greater. They're existing spaces. We're improving them in most cases. We're not changing.
And we're all inside the envelope.
Right. They're all within the envelope, within existing rooms and doors. I don't think it's a major project.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Have an issue. Is it a done deal that 4th and 5th grades in Wrightstown are moving to Newtown?
No, 5th and 6th.
Well, 4th and 5th grade this year.
5th and 6th. 5th and 6th grade at Wrightstown for the next school year are definitely moving to Newtown Elementary.
That's my recommendation.
But what I'm asking
But if
is,
5 of us say that it's not,
well, that's what I'm
then
saying,
it's not.
because you could read in the paper that it's a done deal, and I'm wondering, is it? And I think it's worthy of a board discussion, and I don't mean to micromanage. And I understand, you know, the administration may think that it's their call because we gave them that authority, but I don't read our motion that way. I read our motion to allow them to develop a plan. Remember, the original wording was, before we changed it, was to implement a plan, which I always thought they would implement. The difference between implement to develop, the wording change, means that the board now would have to take some ownership of it and approve it. So at this point, it looks to me that the administration, and I don't want to micromanage, but I don't think this is. It looks to me like the administration is going to make the call about making the decision of
putting 5th and 6th grade in the next school year into Wrightstown. And I believe it's not crossing the line between administration responsibilities and school board responsibilities for us to make that decision.
From my perspective, I don't disagree with you. Maybe I get there through a different path, but I look at it as the administration's going to...
Hey, Jerry, I'm sorry, before we start to discuss this, I mean, is there a motion?
Actually, before we, can I...
Wait, bear with me one second, because we've gone this round many times where it's discussion, and that's how it's listed, so this is discussion.
Okay.
So there doesn't need to be a motion when we're discussing. This has always been an issue. My point has been, because there's not a motion at this point to be formed. My query is, because truthfully, without the numbers that I'm asking Doug for, what are we approving? I apologize?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, one at a
Yeah,
time.
to call me ridiculous on
Sorry,
the
sorry,
microphone?
Jay.
I call you ridiculous.
Okay, that's all I heard. My point was, we're going to have a change in administration, and I think that to take on what Rick is saying, I think it does come to some point that says the board should endorse the plan or not endorse the plan. We also, I'll listen to the fellow who said there's something that that needs to be recorded as a vote of the board, and I'll look to the solicitor, not at this moment, but in the next few days, to get an opinion on that. But if that bears out, then certainly to Rick's point.
But why wouldn't, Derek, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but why wouldn't we look to the solicitor at this moment on that?
Because he hasn't read the case.
I haven't read that provision of the
Right, okay,
school code at this point in time.
So then we're gonna, for us to potentially bless something by inaction without having the solicitor's input on that is...
My understanding was it did not require a vote.
That's the first time I've heard that.
So, but for us, we've taken trailers off other buildings, and I don't believe we went to the state and asked permission to do it.
That's not the issue, Patty.
No, for what you want to do for the redistricting, if you want to make a motion and you would like us to vote on that piece of it, I am perfectly happy with voting on that. The only reason it didn't, in my mind, ever come to a vote like this is that we went through that whole evening where we listed all the things we hope to do over the next 5 years, and we worded it, and we worked on it, and we gave it to Mr. Klein, and I actually made a phone call and talked with him about, is this something we need to vote on, or do you want the space to be able to do this on your own? And he preferred, from what I understood, the space to make this an administrative decision, which he believed he could. If you want to make a motion to vote on moving the children from Wrightstown to Newtown, or some other wording like that, Rick, I am happy to vote on that.
And it may come to that. The other issue we have to consider is, in November, when we made this long list of motions, where are we going to draw the line about which ones we are going to vote on or not vote on? If we're not going to vote on the Wrightstown issue, what about the other ones that the administration may come up with plans with regard to redistricting or the construction of a new middle school? We're certainly going to vote on those.
Right.
So the wording of those motions, I see parrot the one that's with regard to Wrightstown. We're giving them we gave them the marching orders to develop a plan. So if we're not going to vote on the Wrightstown, then I think it's inconsistent that we're going to vote on the other ones.
I just saw it as going along with the idea. What we agreed to remove the trailers. The movement of the children was a result, not an action. That wasn't our first action. Our primary action was the removal of trailers. And the fact that the children didn't fit in school anymore and needed to be moved is just the way you would move children from, to me, in my mind, from one class to another class, another location for the same education.
But if it requires,
Right, well, my understanding...
approval, that's the question.
My understanding is that it did not require a vote for us to do that, and I'll...
So let me just suggest that if you're going to vote on something, let's defer it until the next meeting so we can, number one, set up a proper set of motions, and number two, we can get the solicitor's direction on whether the information that was shared with public comment applies to the situation or doesn't. If you just ad hoc a motion now, my fear is that it's not going to be compliant if we find out something different from Derek And I think we have the luxury of waiting those 2 weeks if it's necessary before we actually do any of the implementation with respect to modular reduction.
And my preference is if the administration wants to go down this road, that's the plan. If we want to act to override it, then at a subsequent meeting, someone should make a motion to override. With the...
It's a question of taking responsibility.
But I-
would
Well,
like to take the heat off of us.
Hang on, one at a
We've
time.
done
I'm sorry, guys.
We've done so. We've laid out a plan. We knew how much space was in Wrightstown. We knew how much space was in Newtown Elementary School. We knew what the effect of taking the trailers off were. So we took ownership. This is heading down that road. If we want to override it, I think we need a motion to override it. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I felt like the conversations that framed the motions were based on presentations that were made to support it. So when the board came around and consistently pushed for an idea to remove the trailers, that is what led to the recommendation by the administration of what that would look like at every school. So it's almost like if we're going to vote for, so I personally do not think that we need to have a vote specifically on what the modular reduction plan looks like. But if that's what everybody wants, that's fine. But for me, if we're going to vote and approve 5th and 6th grade moving to Newtown, we should also be voting to approve the autistic support classrooms moving from Richboro to, but to me, that was part of the motion because that was, the modular reduction plan was presented to us, and that was the basis of the understanding of that motion that passed on November 6th.
We don't vote on every administrative decision that's made.
I'm sorry,
The issue is,
Mr. Byler?
we may have to. So the gentleman in the audience brought up this 22 PA code subsection 441, and it says, the school board minutes plainly and clearly supporting the decision. The decision is reconfiguration. So we may have to vote on it, and I think we have to get an answer to that question before we do anything.
Well, and further to
Hang
the
on,
point,
Mrs. Thomas?
the reconfiguration that states clearly that
Mrs.
it's
Thomas, I'm
say-
sorry, Jay.
schools.
Right.
At this point, I don't see the harm in having it reviewed by the solicitor and coming back and making a decision next week. I don't think, personally, I don't have any problem. When I voted to remove the trailers, I knew there was going to have to be reconfiguration. So to the point that people said earlier, I understood that was my decision then. I haven't had any reason to change my mind since then. But by the same token, if the solicitor reviews it all, reads it all, looks at the motion we did, looks at all the case law, looks at everything that's been brought up, and comes back and says you should have a motion to approve the actual plan, I'm okay with that too.
Mr. Grubb?
And just aside from the legal thing that Mr. Violet and fellow in the audience and I've talked about as well, my point is, I sat at Wrightstown and I listened to people speak to Mark, and Mark said, well, this was the direction I got from the board. And it's good to start the ship on its way and give it direction when it begins. And when it encounters rough water and people, oppositional forces to it, I think that reaffirmation by the board that it continues to be the direction the board started with is appropriate. So,
Okay. Yeah, from my perspective, I was under the impression that no vote was required, and unless one is required. But for me, I don't have a problem waiting, especially given some of the new information that we heard. So we'll look to get your opinion, and we'll come back and discuss it next meeting.
Okay, understand that
Right.
my opinion notwithstanding, it doesn't prevent any one of you from making a motion.
Right. No, we understand that, but I think we'd like to hear your
I
opinion.
think we'd like to form the
Yeah.
motion correctly.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'd like to hear your opinion before forming a motion.
Done enough forming of motions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Klein. I appreciate it, and thank you to the administration for working on that presentation. So we'll move on to the items for board approval.
Can I ask that we move to 3 and 4 up? We have Mr. Kazil here from...
Sure. Yep, so if we
Thank
go
you. So just a
to
chance to move that up.
number 3, Ms. McKessie, if you could read number 3, please.
Coming.
Yeah, but we'll do them one at a time. You want to make sure that we get all that signature in to him. Sorry, Kyle.
I move to approve the amendment to the agreement authorizing Dewey Engineering Incorporated to prepare and submit an application to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development for for up to a $2 million alternative and clean energy grant for the proposed Newtown Middle School project at a cost not to exceed 10% of the grant award or a maximum of $200,000. Alternatively, if the grant is awarded to both the Newtown Middle School and Holland Middle School projects, the cost will be 7.5% of the grant award or a maximum of $150,000, subject to audit and solicitor's review. I move that the Council Rock School District Board of School Directors approves the attached resolution for the submission of the ACE grant for the Newtown Middle School project, subject to audit and solicitor's review.
Second.
We have members of Dewey here. Arif, I believe, is representing the Dewey group, and he's been here to talk to us. He briefed Doug and I on the potential of having the new grant, so he is here to answer questions. If you'd like him to do, or Doug to do a brief overview of what this is. You'll recall that we have addressed exactly the same grant a couple months ago, and we invited Arif to come back to us if that grant remained open, or if those grant fundings remained open, and indeed there is still money left in this grant pool. So that's one of the reasons why we're bringing it back to you now that we have a firmer direction on those two building projects. So questions for Doug or Arif?
I have a question. At the August facilities meeting and at the August board meeting, I specifically asked if this grant money would be available to a Holland Middle School project, and at that time the answer was no, that the funds were only would only be available for Newtown if it was a new construction. Can you clarify that?
I think what I said was at that time we had no information on Holland at all, and what we had for Newtown was a package that was ready to be delivered in compliance with the grant. We currently have a very similar situation with Holland. Holland, as Doug indicated, is behind schedule. The authorization to actually do the design of it was just given, I think, a couple of weeks before we found out about this grant. We are struggling right now on Holland, honestly, to get the package as well put together as Newtown. That's what I said, and at that time there was no even board action. We were not even hired for Holland. So my answer was, it's very hard for me to start working on a grant application for Holland, whereas Newtown, the package was in such a condition that I thought we could easily get it in time. We're having that same struggle right now. We worked all through the holidays. We were advised of this on the 29th, and the only reason we were advised is because we have a contact with an administrator who administers this grant, and he contacted us and said to us that the grant funds, based on the applications they've received to date, there will still be funds left. So if we have any projects, which we had told them we had some possibly, we should submit them. So because of your interest in both of them, and because you're doing both projects simultaneously, we are going gangbusters to submit both of them. There is no guarantee that we get one or both. But every one that we've applied for so far, we have gotten. We have 5 projects like this that we're doing. I apologize if I misled you, but it wasn't to say that a renovation project can't comply, because I have Ben Salem High School, which is a renovation. I have Pottsgrove High School, which is a renovation. And I have 3 other projects which are brand new. So it's not swayed to one to the other. It's just the information, the wealth of information and the detail of information that's required for you to just get $2 million is significant. At that time, I had not even visited Holland, let alone put a budget together, let alone be able to put a floor plan, a site plan, an energy model together for that project, a lead scorecard, and all of the other wealth of information. So if I apologize if I misled you. It wasn't intended to say that a renovation is not eligible. I think what I was guiding you to is that we had a chance at that time, because we were already authorized for Newtown to pursue that.
Okay, that wasn't clear. I mean, because it was definitely not, I did not take, my takeaway at the time was not like, well, we could do Holland if only we were further along. That was not clear to me, so thank you for clarifying.
I apologize.
In the materials that are submitted to the grant as part of the application, are we committing to any specifications in the design outside of the energy pieces relative to size, number of classrooms, that kind of thing?
So this project, this is it's called ACE, which is Alternative and Clean Energy, And the way we've applied for these type of projects, I've done a couple of projects which have just been strictly solar projects, and we've gotten funding for those. But for renovation or new school projects, such as yours in particular, the mechanism for compliance primarily is to achieve LEED Gold rating for the project in a format that proves that you're creating a high-performance energy building. High-performing, not in terms of your school record, as you guys are, but high performance in terms of how they measure it, which is strictly through LEED Gold rating. And with that, I'll mention to you, we've done very well on other projects for other clients, making sure you're getting value for this effort. And the way we do that is we already started, Mark and Doug were there at our meeting, and we've been doing this on the fly here. So at our meeting yesterday, was it already? Every day's a blur. Tuesday. It seems like yesterday. So Tuesday, we had already prepared a LEED scorecard, which shows how we're going to achieve LEED Gold. And against each credit, and there's almost 50 credits that you can go after, we had put down an estimate for cost impact to achieve that credit, so that we're already starting to look at what value we're getting and if there is a premium to achieve the credit. And then certain ones, as we move along, which have more of a premium, we will drop, just making sure we still get LEED Gold. So it's a whole strategy behind it. If you recall, also under PDE requirements, if you meet LEED Silver requirements, you get additional reimbursement. So we're already going to try to get LEED Silver so we can get the additional PDE reimbursement, but every bit helps. You're not going to find an opportunity anywhere else, which is why I was pushing it for Newtown before, to get $2 million. It's a very...
I'm just trying to, the question I'm asking though is that we haven't even talked about what the design of the building looks like, how big it is and whatnot. I just want to understand that that has no bearing on this. It doesn't matter if we have 75 classrooms or 85 classrooms, correct?
No, it's not a classroom thing, but generally speaking, what I'm submitting has some parameters, I'll be honest with you. I mean,
But Arif, they're all energy related. They're not committing us to the size of school, the
no, they're not committing you
capacity
to
of the building, the number of classrooms. It's all about...
Well, let's put it this way. You know, we're submitting it, assuming it's around 180,000 square feet. That's what we've sort of been talking about. If it goes to 190, if it goes to 170, that's not a big issue. But if we build a 50,000 square foot school, we've got a problem. Or if we decide, you know...
You're actually, if I understand it correctly, you would apply for a grant, which would give you a $2 million cap on this reimbursement.
Right.
And then you have to earn it.
Correct.
And you can earn up to the $2 million. So if at that point, if we did something that only earned up to $1 million, because we didn't build big enough, we built a smaller building, we wouldn't get it. Or is it all or nothing?
No, Jerry, it's not like that. It's actually, what it's based on is the most they'll give you is 10% of what you're spending, up to $2 million. Okay. So if we spend $19 million, we would only get 1.9. But we're not in that category.
So
but what I'm telling you is the submission is pretty intensive. We can't submit an orange and build a banana.
But I'm fully committed to the fact that
we can build a smaller orange or a variety of an orange, but
nowhere have we come to the thought that we were going to be able to do any of these projects, either of these two projects, for 20 million or less at this point.
Correct.
And if it's 10% of what you spend, we've covered that aspect of it.
Correct.
Okay.
But it's not 10% of the entire project, it's 10% of the offset of the costs related to alternative and clean energy product.
No, they measure the whole project, and they recognize that when you do LEED, okay, if I don't give you a good building envelope, I can't do well on energy savings. If I don't give you a good roof, if I don't give you good windows, if I don't give you a good mechanical system, if I don't give you good lights, if I don't have, it's an integrated process, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for measurements on Energy Star. They're looking for measurements against ASHRAE standards for how the building's performing. That's what they're looking for us to submit, and a commitment from the district that that's what we're going to build.
So I think I remember you saying at the facilities meeting that if there was any trepidation of the board that you would have a hard time getting this grant, right?
Well, yes, because
The trepidation being not on this motion, but if we're moving forward with building a new school.
Right, because the last time there was even a question as to whether we were doing Newtown, when I was talking about the grant. And then there was a question, well, why don't we get the grant for Holland? And my answer was, I don't even know what we're doing. How do I go after the grant? So the trepidation pieces, we had to work this week with Doug and Mr. Klein to get letters of support from both townships. You know, they want to know that this is a shovel-ready, viable project, because they don't want to give you $2 million and it sits somewhere and flounders where they could be giving it to somebody else who's going to execute a project. So we had to get letters this week, which, you know, Mark and Doug were very good about getting. I wrote them out, but they got the letters. We've got the letters of support from the township. We'll probably have to reach out after we get everything submitted and get additional support from other avenues. I've talked to Mark about that, and we'll pursue that. But I think it has to be evident that you want to do this and you want to do the right project.
Well, let me just continue my thought on that, because one of the consistent things that I've been saying is that the motions have been put before this board for building a new middle school. And I've not voted for most of those with the idea that I don't support building a new middle school, and I haven't been shown that it's better to build a new school rather than renovate the one that we have and save the taxpayers' money. What I've been told each step of the way is, well, this doesn't necessarily mean that we're building a new middle school. This means that we're looking at the plot plan, and now we're looking at the owl that may live in that area, so we have to spend a little bit more money there, and we're looking at this and that. And what I kept saying is, I think the train is already out of the station, and we can't pull that back. Now what I'm hearing here is, well, wait a minute, you clearly already decided to build this school, so now we can get another $2 million to help you.
I thought we were on that train, same as you, until November 6th, when we voted to build a new Newtown Middle. I'm just saying that's for me when it changed.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has something different to add.
I was not in favor of the new Newtown Middle School for similar reasons to Mr. Bialik, because I wasn't convinced that that was necessary, that perhaps that we could be renovating. I'm concerned about saving money and making more aggressive steps towards saving money. So, but I respect the process. I was not on the, with the majority on that, and I respect the process. So I want to be able to vote yes for these grants because they are going to save money. That is my primary focus on this at this point, particularly because I wasn't convinced that we should be going the route to build a new school either. But I still don't feel like I have the answer to the question that I've been asking. So let me just ask it a different way.
Sure, sorry.
We do not have a design of this school yet, right?
We have schematic design.
We have
Okay.
a schematic concept floor plan, which we're using as part of the grant submission.
Okay. In my mind right now, Newtown Middle School and the new Newtown Middle School and the renovated Holland Middle School will each have roughly 1,000 students. Because that's what that, in round numbers, that's where they exist right now. If you take the population of Richboro Middle and Holland Middle and combine it, it's a little over 1,000. Newtown's around, okay? But there has been conversation at the board table about redistricting some Northampton Township students to Newtown Middle and ultimately to North, which would make the size of the schools a little different. Maybe then Holland Middle would be 850 or 900 students, and Newtown Middle would be 1,100 students. So for me, I want to know that whatever you're going to do for the grant allows the flexibility for that conversation to happen, because for me, I haven't committed to what the size of those buildings are. We haven't talked about it. We haven't had that fully vetted. So I want to know, whatever you're submitting to the grant for this application, would everything still be okay? Is whatever you're submitting still okay if Holland Middle is 850 students or 1,000 students, or if Newtown was 1,000 or 1,200? Is there wiggle room in that planning because we haven't approved it yet, or does this grant somehow make it a contingency of a certain size based on whatever you're submitting?
No, like I said, if you swing the 10,000 square feet one way or another on these, in fact, I think we've already talked about, we had the discussion about the 7
It swings
teams
roughly
versus
one team.
6
So-
teams, right? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know, because you say 10,000 square feet, I don't know what that means in terms of,
Right.
how do you translate that
When
into
we've
Well,
talked
that's
to the
like seven
architect
classrooms.
and to Dewey, it's the swing of one team and the space for one team, which is roughly 5 classrooms between those two buildings. And from what I've heard you guys say, that doesn't change, it really doesn't even change much of the way they're designing the building.
This $2
Correct.
million.
That's true.
There's a complexity here, and part of it is the role of the engineer and the role of the architect. You're the engineer. The architect is going to size the building, right? Is that, maybe I got it backwards. That this $2 million, is there another school district potentially somewhere in the district, in the state, who's got a high school for 500 kids, and they're gonna build a high school, and they're gonna put in for $2 million as well, because that's the limit of the grant? Is 2 million, is anybody putting in for 4 million on this grant?
Well,
on a
like
single
I
building?
told you, I have, we have 5 of them we're working on right now.
2
Okay,
million
so
is
one,
max?
no, one of them, one project is a $19 million elementary school. And so they're basically, they got 2 million. If they only spend 19 million, they're gonna get 1.9. If, as we go through the project, we end up spending 20.5 million, they'll get 2 million.
We're talking about a number of 55 million. 2 million's the max, right?
Right.
That's, so it scales down from there. So so I guess what I'm trying to hear is if the number that has been thrown around Newtown Middle was 55 million. If we turned around and said, you know what, we're only going to renovate, it's 35 million. Would we still be able to take the 2 million
I'm
top?
submitting the grant
As
as a new
construction.
building.
I understand, but
So that's gonna be a
if it was a
problem.
new construction for 35 million.
That would be okay.
But
That's
what-
Right, I understand, the
Yeah,
motion's
sometimes
passed. I understand that the new Newtown Middle School is being built. I respect the process, even if I didn't vote for it, I get it. My concern now is that I desperately would love to offset these costs with $4 million, but I want to make sure that it's not committing us to a specific configuration of that school before we've had a chance to talk about
But
it.
you're not, because the answer is,
Well,
this
that's-
is only getting the money, the grant money. You still have to, what you do still has to qualify to get the money. So
I
even if they get the
understand that.
number and we don't do it,
But
and he's paid
Yeah,
out of
but
the
I mean,
out of
if the
benefits of
carrot is being dangled and it's like, well, if we go this way, we'll get the money, and if we, the psychology is different. I want to understand what the grant application looks like, and if I'm hearing it right, that my concern is not a serious concern. That if either of those schools are built a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, that has no bearing on that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct, but what I'll say is the discussion earlier was talking about schedule, okay? And we are working with the team. So with all due respect, if we are gonna change these programs, you know, through our superintendent, through the, through Mr. Taylor, we should get that direction, because we are going full bore. You know, a minute ago, you guys were saying, can we move it ahead? Why is it taking so long? You know, and I was sitting there listening to this,
Right.
and we're trying hard. So I'm just saying, we need to get that direction, with all due respect. If you want us to
Well,
hold, we'll hold, but we need the direction from the board, because I don't want to be back here 2 months from now.
This is what happened to us. You came to us,
Right.
and you pushed us to do this now. So we got a date, we got a note a week ago. We're going to have to vote on this right now, because we're within a time frame. Now, you have a schematic of what you want to build. I've never seen it.
It's the same one that was presented by the architect at the.
So is it the architect that built the junior high minus the cafeteria with the walk-around ceiling?
the
Or is it
architect
the building that I liked that went up like this, was sort of rectangular, had hallways, and a cafeteria? So which building is it that I'm building is would be my question.
Part of the facilities agenda for next week, I would assume, correct?
Not next week, but the next month.
Next month.
We're working on the schematic, so they actually have a plan to show you based upon the preliminary programming that we've developed with the principals.
So if he has a nice, safe, generic building, I'm fine with all this.
And he does.
I
It's
think
the one you
Denise
picked
would
that
probably
was
be
safe.
fine
It's-
with this.
I think we're going to
You
be
know?
okay.
But the kooky building, I don't want.
It's
You
not the
didn't pick
kooky
that.
building.
You promise.
I promise,
You
it's
didn't
not the
pick that, I
kooky building.
promise.
Let me
Can
ask
I-
this question directly. The schematic, or whatever you're planning, does it have, is the Newtown Middle School plan currently being thought of as including Northampton students?
No. As of right now, we've just gone forward with Richboro Middle School goes to Holland Middle School, and there's 7 teams. And Newtown Middle School is its present configuration 4 years out as 6 teams. But the conversation has been, how do you actually add a team to Newtown? How do you subtract a team from? So that's really what that flex would be, Denise, is just that one team from one building.
All right,
to
I mean,
the other.
because I'm hearing so much pushback here, I just want to be,
I'm not
because
pushing
we
back.
have not visually seen anything, we have not talked about this in months, you're putting an application together that commits certain ideas. I just want to fully understand what your application looks like. So I just want to say it again to make sure that I've got it right. Whatever you're putting together is assuming that the populations of Richboro Middle School and Holland Middle School are merging into one building, and the population of Newtown Middle School is staying the same in a brand-new building. That is how you're moving forward at this point?
That's correct.
I'm comfortable with that. Okay.
Can I ask, can I, no? Yes?
Please.
If I vote for this, and if this passes, and in 3 months, what comes before us, we don't want to do it anymore, and this board says, forget it, we're not doing anything, what happens?
If you decide to cancel the project?
Yeah, just say. I mean, anything's possible in the world. There's going to be new board members.
Well, you'd have to pay us for our effort.
Okay, so I have to pay you for
But
other than that?
Other than that, send a
Okay.
letter to them
So
and tell
let
them
me
to
just
take their money
publicly
back.
say, I'm fully in favor of applying for this, but this vote is not going to bind me to vote for anything else in the future. So if the schematic is crazy, which I'm not in favor of anymore, and either, I'm not going to vote for it, plain and simple. I don't care if I voted to apply for a grant. I mean, I think the questions are good. I think we should know. I think you should. But I need to be really clear with you. I want the grant. I wanted the grant back in August when we couldn't get the grant. I'm all for it. But if something happens or there's some other things and I need to vote on something and I'm not comfortable with it, I'm not going to vote for that because I voted for this grant.
No,
So
you have every right to change the design.
I am just being perfectly upfront.
Well, that's true for anything.
For everybody.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if we decide to move 2 teams,
No, I understand
and
that,
that's
but
the
I just
tipping
want-
point.
Once this is put together and this is all officially submitted to the, I just want to I just needed to understand,
I
what
agree.
did it look like? What is the assumption? Because since many months ago, we haven't actually talked about this.
I agree, and what I wanted to say is, as further, is if we decided to move 2 teams or 3 teams, and the only thing holding us back was that we had voted on this grant, I'm personally, I do think it changes psychology, because you're like, oh, we're gonna lose that money. I understand. I'm just saying publicly, I'm not gonna not vote on the building changes because I wanted to get money, and I understand I would certainly have to pay you for your time, and I would respect that. But
So our risk is
if
the fee.
it's reasonable, and we get $4 million between the 2 projects, it'd be great to have. Nobody here would want to turn it down.
And I just want to, for the record, clarify, I am in no way pushing you. I thought you guys wanted to move ahead with this. This was an
I did.
opportunity that I thought was something I would feel bad if I didn't bring to you. It caused a lot of stress and aggravation for me to bring people in over the holidays to do this. So, and again, I will go back and if you don't want to pursue this, but don't ask me 6 months from now what grants are available. These things do not come about this easy too often. Where have you ever had another project where someone has said to you, we might be able to offset it with $2 million? Tell me, please. And I'm just telling you, I don't want you to feel any pressure. I work for you. I work at your will. I will do what you guys say. I just thought I was doing the right thing for my client. I took the initiative to do as much as I could. When I came in Monday, when they came in Monday, they jumped on it and helped with whatever pieces we needed. And that's all we're trying to do is just try to find that. There's no even guarantee we get this. It's the last shot because this program's ending. So I don't want you to feel any pressure. I don't want to be the person that looks like, hey, I forced you into some project you don't want to do.
Please don't misunderstand the questions.
Okay, I understand.
I mean.
But I also want you to know that I'm not forcing anybody
No,
to
to
make a decision before you're ready.
I understand, and the questions I'm asking was so that I could feel comfortable voting it. Understand that, I'm sure you can appreciate
I agree.
the confusion that could have been, because I don't feel like it was clearly represented in August that funds were available for Holland, so now that that's clarified. And I just wanted to be sure that we weren't overcommitting to something, you know, like, for example, you said in August, when we were going to apply to it, we were committing to a new Newtown Middle School before we actually voted on it.
I know.
So that was the problem, and you know, so, but this is different. We have now voted on it, so now I just needed to make sure that it wasn't committing us to a certain size of school or a future redistricting without having a chance to talk about it.
Mr. Abramson, did you have a comment?
Yeah, a few comments. First off, I'm thinking, what realistic reason would there be not to approve this? So I could ask Mr. Taylor?
I see no realistic reason, but I want to be, if I could just add, I want to be clear that it's a $2 million grant per school if we get the, you know, if we're awarded the grant. However, from the $2 million, there's going to be monies applied from that grant to achieve LEED Gold. So I don't want anyone to think that we're going to walk away with $2 million minus the fee for Dewey to get these grants for us. There are going to be monies from the $2 million toward each project that we have to put back into the project to achieve LEED Gold. And it could be upwards of nearly, you know, $700 to $1 million to do that if it's geothermal well fields. But we benefit by better energy costs. We benefit, and if it's the solar field, we benefit by 5% of energy that we're producing for our own building that we're not paying off the grid. So there are some paybacks to it. I just want to be clear that at the end of the day, it is free money. We're still going to benefit from the money. We are going to gross some money, you know, net some money at the end of the day.
But in August, didn't you say, the question was asked, how much more would we be spending?
Yeah,
to be
Denise,
legal?
I'm sorry, could we continue?
But I just want to clarify, because you had said $400,000.
I said about $500,000, but it may be more. It may be 750.
Right, I'm sorry, Mr. Abramson has the floor.
The next issue I have is, if the grant is awarded, when do we receive the money?
Okay, we would be notified in March, approximately, middle of March. So they usually take 60 days for the review, so we'd be notified. And then the way you're paid, it's actually much, much better. He's going to like it a lot much better than what the PD reimbursement methodology is, because essentially, when we start executing and drawing down funds, say we get to $2 million and we've spent $2 million, we can then make a submission for $2 million. They'll give us 10% of that, so we'll get a check back for $200,000. So basically, once we reach our $20 million, once we really start construction, we'll work with Mr. Reinhardt and make the submissions, and we'll basically get reimbursed. So it depends on our timing of our project, but essentially you get it as you go.
Arif, we pay you at the end, though, right?
No, that's not true.
We don't pay you at all? Cool.
We'll talk about that.
Your answer now brings me back to what you said to Mr. Bybeck, that the 10% or the $2 million is not just based on the energy.
The project.
But the total project.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Dewey's letter of December 29th.
Okay.
And it does say that the 10% is an offset. It's to offset costs related to alternative and clean energy.
Projects.
Well, yeah, but not the total project.
Right, but then if you read the last sentence, the Council Rock School District construction project qualifies for the grant by incorporating green building practices that achieve a LEED Gold rating.
Okay.
There's many different categories within ACE system, so, you know, if you're reading exact words, I apologize, but, you know,
Well, that's what I do.
Right, that's fine. and I appreciate that, but what I'm saying is our compliance method is not by one component of the building. Our compliance method is the entire project is meeting LEED Gold. LEED Gold, you don't pick one piece. The entire project gets LEED Gold. You get LEED Gold, that project got LEED Gold. They even pay for our fee, architect's fees covered, construction testing is covered, commissioning is covered. Almost any project cost other than financing or furniture and equipment is basically covered.
So the project costs that we submit, this is fascinating stuff. The project costs that
it's amazing.
The project costs that we submit, whether or not it's related to alternative or clean energy, we still get the 10% as we go?
For this project, that this project is meeting LEED Gold.
Okay. Next question. After the grant is submitted, and I understand tomorrow's the deadline.
Yes.
And I understand you already did the work for it.
There's actually a little bit of a caveat to that, but keep going.
Okay, I love caveats. What's that?
Well, the caveat is they've given us, we have to submit everything except the energy model. I've been given a 2-week stay of execution on that piece because it was impossible. I am getting a schematic floor plan from the architect. It actually just came at 5 o'clock this evening.
You may just partially answer where I was going. So after the submission of the grant, other than this caveat you just told us about, what other work will need to be done by you?
Okay, well, there's the whole administrative process of carrying out the grant, paperwork for the next through design, making sure the lead scorecard complies, all of the administrative, and then through construction, we have to do all of the accounting, including all of the labor. They have requirements for the type of labor, and there's forms you have to fill out before you can actually make the application for those reimbursement of funds. So there's a whole administrative process for over 2.5 years that you have to do. So, Bob's question is, will we get paid at the end? We'll get some portion of it earlier, but, we won't be fully paid for our services till the end of the project when we get LEED Gold certificate from USGBC.
And all this work, is it all on Dewey, or is it going to take up our administrator's time?
Like I said, we're still pursuing LEED Silver, and we're still going to publicly bid the project. I think the administration would agree. I basically served everything to them on a silver. They had to make some phone calls, but I did the letters for them, the templates. I did everything. I mean, some things they have to sign and put on their letterhead, but I don't think they were overburdened by it. But you can answer that yourself.
No, I would say that they were helpful with providing templates that were very helpful, useful.
And just finally, to Wendy's point, that if for any reason we pull the plug on it later on, I would have no problem paying Dewey for what you've done after the submission of the grant. But you did it, like you said in your own letter, the work you've done, and it looks like it's a tremendous amount of work to submit the grant. Because you did it at your own risk, I would vote against paying that, because you did that part on your own risk. So I'm letting you know that up front. They did that work before we made the approval.
He did it at risk.
Yes.
Okay, well.
So I'm just letting you know that.
Well, where a reef is at risk is if we don't get the grant.
No,
where it's clear.
Rick.
I understand, but I'm just saying, if we choose to go forward at this point in time and then recant,
Right, and the
told them to
chances
keep
of that
moving.
happening,
Right.
I think are so small, not even to discuss it, but it came up, so.
All right. Is there any further comment before we?
I just had, and this has probably been asked before, but so you mentioned LEED Silver, LEED Gold. Mr. Taylor mentioned or implied there are different varieties of efforts you could do within the LEED Gold envelope. You could have geothermal, you could have solar, but within the base case LEED Gold scenario for these sizes of buildings, is there any kind of rough estimate as to what the yearly energy savings would be?
It's very difficult to come up with that number for each of these projects and just do a carte blanche. But what I can tell you is one of our challenges is going to be, which we've already started, is to make sure you get very good value for any investment we make, whether it's any part of this $2 million or whether it's part of the remaining $53 million for Newtown, or whatever the number is for Holland. That's our task. I hope that's why you hired us, because we're gonna put our heart and soul in it. Hopefully this is proof of it. I'm getting sort of the feeling that maybe I'm forcing you, so I'm apologizing about this grant again, because I just want to tell you our job is to make sure you get the best value. What I can tell you is to meet LEED Gold versus LEED Silver. So I'll give you one simple example. To meet LEED Silver, to get the PD reimbursement, you have to do commissioning. So you've already committed that. So do you want me to put that against the $2 million, or can we say that's part of your 53? I'm just going to put it all together because it's all your money in the end. We've got to make it get you the best value. So that 100. Now, to get LEED Gold, I probably need to do enhanced commissioning. So for that, I'm probably going to pay an extra 50 grand. So I would put that against the 2 million. To get, I'll give you one more example. To do the solar, to do LEED silver, we probably don't need to do solar. But to get LEED gold, I probably need those 3 points where I have to get 5% of your energy has to be renewable. And so I'd be putting the solar panels. But my strategy for that would be to bid that as an alternate bid and know on bid day that I absolutely need those 3 points to commit for you to spend the 250 or not. Those are the strategies and games I'm going to play to make sure we get the best value.
Well,
so it's a very hard thing to say, because it's really a game to try to get those points. To go from silver to gold is an extra 12 points. They're hard points to get. That's why they don't say, oh, just go get LEED silver and we'll give you 2. Right?
I mean, that was kind of like on the cost side, but 10 years from now, the yearly costs of a LEED gold certified building to operate.
I can tell you we have one right now that's been functioning. It's Broggle Middle School. It's right by Lehigh University. It's a LEED gold building. It's 100 on the Energy Star rating. Okay, its KBTU per square foot is phenomenal. I mean, how much money is it saving compared to the other middle schools? Every year it's compared to the other middle schools, almost $100,000 in utilities. I can't tell you that's what you're going to have, because first of all, you're probably, right now you don't have air conditioning in these buildings, so you know, what am I comparing it against?
Right.
Should I compare it against a fully functional building, or should I compare it to what you're currently using? You currently don't, bringing in the right amount of outside air, you don't have the right light levels, you've used modulars out there like you just talked about. What do we want to compare it against? I don't want to throw out a number because it would not be a fair comparison, but what we will do is you'll get a number that says, okay, if you were building a standard ASHRAE building, code design building, and now you're building this LEED gold building, we'll be able to show you the energy savings between the two, and then we'll use a utility rate of 10 cents per kilowatt hour, or whatever the gas rate is, multiply those, and tell you, okay, this is what the differential is dollar-wise.
And when
is
would
that fair?
And when would those kind of estimates be?
Those are going to be done as you get deep into design.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Foster. Just one more, Mr. Violet, you said you had.
I just want to clarify my earlier point. I went back and I looked at the motions, and I'm going to be interested to review the video. I've either put up a mental block or which is possible from trauma like that, but I'm just kidding. There's never been a doubt in my mind from our first presentation that the majority of this board wanted to build a new middle school, and that's fine. And I said the first time this opportunity came around is, even though I don't agree with building a new middle school, I think we should move forward with it to save the district money, so I'll support it for that reason in respect of the majority vote. But Doug, to a question for you, I think that you said, or maybe it was you.
I wasn't there for that one.
No, that we would probably try to achieve the LEED gold certification anyway, even if we didn't have the grant.
No, we're always going to try to achieve LEED silver.
Okay. So, because we're talking about a $750,000 additional cost, that really may not be an additional cost. It may.
Right.
Okay.
It may not, if there's offsetting costs based on energy savings and,
And Doug, the advantage to LEED silver was that we get extra PlancCon money, is that correct?
PD reimbursement.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
The only, and I trust you, and I respect you for working in what you perceive to be, and I think you are correct, is the best interest of the district, and taking that upon yourself or upon your organization. There was an article in the Times recently, and I trust you not to get us into this situation, about someone who built a home that was one of these off-the-grid homes, and it would seem great, and there's no energy involved, and then he discovered that he has to go out and clean his solar panels, and he has to go up and clean the collector for this, that, or the other thing, and he found out the maintenance, you read the article as well, that the maintenance here was keeping him, he had to stay in the house because he couldn't sell it, because no one wants to go do that much maintenance, and this man is now 75. So I'm not looking, and I don't think gold puts us on the bleeding edge of the knife, of having to do things that are untested, untried, untrue. But I trust you to do the value, and Doug as well, to do the value engineering that says, the increment and the benefit here is enduring. It doesn't come with such costs operationally that it's self-defeating.
Right.
So, I hear you. I like your approach that says we'll put a number of bid alternates out there that say, if it comes back and it gives me 2 more points for $20, we're doing it. If it gives me 2 more points for $2 million, not where we're going. I think that's the right way to go.
Or, I'll add one more, we need the 3 points so we can get the 2 million. We have to spend the 150, then we'll probably do it.
I have to do it, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, great.
So,
With that,
can I just finish my that's okay. I'm used to it. But I do appreciate you taking the time and taking the risk, because I think you are at risk for the time that you took.
Right.
It could certainly be that if for some reason this project doesn't go forward, that 5 of us say, no, we're not going to pay that because you're at risk. So I appreciate the initiative, and I appreciate the potential $4 million.
so I'm going to call for a roll call vote, please, and thank you
Okay.
for that discussion.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Don't leave, because we
Stay
still
there,
have
we're
one
doing
more
Yeah.
the
motion.
next one.
I need the resolutions before I
No,
leave.
you still have the Holland motion to go. You're gonna
It's
have
only
to
You
go.
have to go through this all again.
Same questions? I think we answered them already.
Okay, Mrs. Brooks,
Yes.
Mr. Bialik,
Yes.
Dr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Grupp,
Yes.
Mrs. McKessie,
Yes.
Mrs. Sexton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Block,
Yes.
Mr. Abramson.
Yes.
That's what it takes to get unanimous vote here, just to tell you
So,
now.
$4 million, and you only gave us 2. Now give us another
So,
2 million.
Ms. Brooks, if you could please read the next motion.
I move to approve the amendment to the agreement authorizing Dewey Engineering, Inc. to prepare and submit an application to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development for up to a $2 million alternative and clean energy grant for the proposed Holland Middle School project at a cost not to exceed 10% of the grant award or a maximum of $200,000. Alternatively, if the grant is awarded to both the Newtown Middle School and Holland Middle School projects, the cost will be 7.5% of the grant award, or a maximum of $150,000, subject to audit and solicitor's review. I move that the Council Rock School District Board of School Directors approves the attached resolution for the submission of the ACE grant for the Holland Middle School project, subject to audit and solicitor's review.
Second.
Do I have any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Mrs. McKessie,
Yes.
Mrs. Sexton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Block,
Yes.
Mr. Abramson,
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks,
Yes.
Mr. Bialik,
Yes.
Dr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Grupp.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll do our best for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Mr. Grupp to move back to item number 1 for board approval, please.
I move to approve the resolution as found in the attachment to this agenda indicating to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Education that the Council Rock School District will limit local taxation to an increase no greater than 1.9% compliant with the Act 1 index.
Second?
Questions for Mr. Reinhardt? This always comes with the caveat or with the disclaimer that 1.9% is not what we're going to raise the taxes, but it limits us to the Act 1 index of 1.9%, and it requires now that we would not go for any of the exceptions. So now our budget conversation will range from 0 to 1.9%.
1.9 would equate to 2.18 mils, or approximately $2.7 million of additional real estate revenue. I don't have the exact number right now because of...
You know, I have a question about the motion, though. And that is because we're not changing this, because it's not talking, it should be talking about the rate, not the taxation. Because earned income tax might go up, just the amount gathered, which means that the amount gathered has gone up by more than 1.9%. So it really should be the rate, not the increase, not the taxation.
The resolution speaks about it being the real estate millage rate, and it gets very specific about it. This is the same resolution we've passed in the past.
I'm just looking at the wording and just
Yeah, I
wondering
understand.
if the wording is actually, you know, as long as this doesn't speak to approving the resolution, this speaks to
I
a move to approve the resolution. Never mind, fine. I was just concerned that the wording was.
The administration, Mr. Klein said, not seeking to go after any of the exceptions.
That's correct. Our recommendation is that we stay within the Act 1 indexes we have the last couple of years.
All right, and I'll just ask, out of all the exceptions that may be available, if you had to prioritize one that...
The largest one is the increase in the retirement contribution is the biggest one. There could be a special ed one also, but I'm not sure that we would get that one. That's going to be over 10% increase in special ed costs, and I don't believe we would have that one. But that's...
From your preliminary review, you're satisfied that the...
Yes, my
exception,
overall review.
You'll be able to come within the
Yes.
index without the exception, fine.
Any more questions for Mr. Reinhardt? Okay, I'd like to call a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Block?
Yes.
Mr. Abramson?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Bialik?
Yes.
Dr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grupp?
Show for the record, Mr. Grupp is away from the
Oh.
table.
Mrs. McKessie?
Yes.
Mrs. Sexton?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bialik, could you please read item number 2?
Sure, I move to approve the Bucks County tax map parcel number 05-035-058 OR 2, is that right or is that OR? That's OR. 280 Red Cedar Drive, Levittown, Pennsylvania, 19055 resolution as contained in the attachment to this agenda.
Second.
Discussion?
Derek, do you want to speak to this because it was an East Bergen Gray change to this that actually Rob, I think, collaborated with Mike?
Yeah, do I have to explain the whole thing, though? Because this is, it's been a mess for about, I don't know, 10, 15 years. IU trying to get rid of this piece of property that's owned in the name, the individual name of the 13 districts comprising the IU, subject to a deed restriction that makes it highly unmarketable and apparently also has a piece of, or an improvement on it that really needs to be demolished.
Right.
So this resolution is you authorizing the IU to possibly remove that, if it deems it necessary, that improvement, i.e. the house that's on there. After, and this is the change in the from a previous version of this resolution, after approval of any demolition proposal by a majority of the Board of School Directors of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit 22, so that there'll be some limitation on the, and review of whatever that cost might be. But essentially, you're dumping this back into the hands of the IU to do what they think's best here. And if that includes spending a little more money so that they can sell it by demolishing the house, that's what will be done.
It'll be worth something.
Dr. Foster?
More than nothing.
Yeah, so I like the addition to have that control of the IU board, but why wasn't that it devolved to the IU board throughout? So, it says that the property could be given away, or it could be auctioned. I mean, anything could happen to the property. And I just never understood why the 13 districts didn't say, the IU head can come to their board and say they want to give it to XYZ Corporation, but that they should approve it. Here it kind of reads to me like if once he decides to give it to whoever, that's that.
I thought it didn't because it would only involve additional cost. I thought originally when we were talking, I thought we talked about was
The concern was
if we have additional cost, we want some control. We didn't talk about having control over any decision. So
Right.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just saying I think by way of explanation, my understanding that the focus was, what if they do something and it's going to cost us all money, and so we wanted control there. If they get rid of it, it doesn't cost anybody any money. There wasn't a conversation around that.
So your question is why do we need this resolution at all?
Well, no, I was just curious why.
There wasn't a
If you give a property to someone, I mean, there's all kinds of entities out there in the world. You could end up regretting that you had given it to that particular entity. And it kind of reads to me where the only point of control that remains with the IU board is if there's money spent for demolition, but in terms of other things, no control. But Is that right?
This is just a simple,
Okay.
very simple issue. We need to knock down the building, nobody will buy the building, we need to get rid of the land, it's no longer used by us. We could get money for the building, or the land, we can't get money for the land with the building on it. If we get some money, we don't have to pay taxes on it anymore, we don't have to worry about it anymore. We
And
don't
I
have to
think
do
it's also a
anything with it
question
anymore.
of this resolution allows the IU to act with speed if they happen to find somebody who's willing to take it,
Okay.
rather than sending it back to 13 school
districts to
boards
vote on.
for a vote.
And is it a piece of property that's separate from the main body of the IU?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is?
It's
Okay.
just a
It's
lot in
way out.
Levittown.
So it's way out somewhere?
yeah.
Okay, fine.
It's not particularly well situated either. That's why it's not, it's
No.
on an odd part of a street. That's why it's not selling.
And they don't, well, I won't even go into that explanation. Okay.
Any more comments or questions? All right, I don't hear any objections, so I'm going to ask the secretary to record the motion as passing with unanimous consent, please. And with that, we'll move to board items. We'll start with old business. And there's been a lot of conversation about technology, so Mr. Klein, I think we've got
Mr.
Mr. Frederickson teed up to...
I think the last time we talked, Mr. Frederickson was going to talk about a informal, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 times a year meeting. It never migrated to, in my opinion, in the conversation, a technology board committee that needed a charter, but I'm not sure that I had that totally complete, so we put it on the agenda tonight just to make sure that we have buttoned it down. Matt's moving forward with a sort of composite or hybrid group. If you want to talk a little bit about what your thoughts are, Matt, I think it was what we talked about at the last board meeting too.
Well, since I started 11 years ago, we've had a very, very informal committee. Whenever I've done a major project, I've asked for, oftentimes, Mr. Grupp and a few members from the community to sit down with me and just walk through them. At times, Mrs. Thomas and Ms. McKessie has been involved with that as well. What I'm looking to do is make this a little more formalized. In other words, we would have 2 or 3 meetings a year. The first one would most likely be in February or March, where I would discuss my summer projects, my version of the summer projects in terms of what I'm planning on spending the money on. And then we would meet whenever the board would like to meet to discuss things, but more formalized and just do 2 or 3 times a year.
And I think that more closely mirrors what I'm thinking, because it's summer projects, it's also, if I'm too close to the mic now, I'm sorry. It's summer projects, it's also as you go to prepare the budget, because, you know, your presentation of the board of what you're planning, but this panel of people, now obviously there, you know, it can be open, it cannot be open, I don't care, but this panel of people also have given some challenge, you know, in terms of what your plans are for the year from a budgetary perspective. And that, I think that helps. That's an appropriate challenge before it comes to the board. You know, maybe there are different alternatives. This ad hoc committee has come up with various plans at different times in the financial world, in the financial life of this district, about leasing versus purchase, was doing things on a rotational basis. These types of alternatives have come from hearing what Matt and the technology group wanted to do. So I think you're going down the right path. I think that's really what, and you know, I know we had spoken before about, well, some of this will be covered at academic standards. Yeah, well, academic standards, I don't think is interested in discussing switching and the use of the fiber as the backbone, and you know, the use of our office administration, you know, the software that Bob Reinhardt's group is using. So I like the idea. I think you've captured the spirit of what I was asking for, was a forum that board members could sit and learn, and if they want, if they don't want, but also to hear the input of other people in the community as a bit of a panel of experts. I think you're doing what I asked. Thank you.
So then it would be an advertised meeting?
Well, if more than 4 board members want to attend, then it would most definitely need to be advertised. If not, then what we would do is commit to keeping more detailed meeting minutes than we ever have before and disseminating them to the board so that people would know what was discussed and what kinds of resolutions or recommendations were made by the committee.
Well, it could also, at some point, it could also be, if the board is not on the panel, it could also be a informational meeting or a panel meeting of them that the board is not participating in, but hearing the panel discussion. That does not need to be advertised.
Yeah, it's however you would like to do it, we're happy to do it. So So we'll set up the first meeting and then bring it back as a date and time to the board and decide whether we want to advertise it or just have it as an ad hoc committee where the board watches but doesn't participate.
Yeah, personally for me, and we heard in public comment, was ultimately, I'd love to see an IT overlay for the 5-year capital plan. You know, how we get to that is not so important to me relative to a formal committee or not. Sounds like we're on the right track, so that's great. So we'll continue, I guess, to follow up on that within old business and future meetings. So thank you, Matt. Any new business? Okay, we'll move on to the committee reports. There haven't been many committee meetings, but there was a fantastic academic standards committee meeting tonight. Ms. Brooks?
Yes, we
Tell
met
us about it.
tonight. There was a discussion about the prevention programs. It was an overview that pretty much carried us K to 12. Each segment only had 10 minutes, and I think we probably could have had full meetings on each one. So it was a very good overview. For those of you that weren't here tonight, the presentation and the materials will be put online. I also passed out something before the meeting, a folder of some additional information, but it was very helpful, and it's great to see the extent to which our students are being taken care of socially, emotionally, as well as academically. Our next academic standards meeting is February, whatever, what is it? 2nd? February 2nd. And it is a look at technology.
Within the presentation we saw, will be posted in the minutes, and there were links in there. Was that in the folder or not? I didn't get a chance to look
That
in the
is
folder
not
yet.
what's in, that's a small part of it.
Okay,
but the
got it.
link-
So everything's online.
It will be online.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it was a great meeting. I know we haven't had a facilities meeting, but Ms. McKessie, I don't know if you have any updates for next meeting, Thursday?
Next meeting will be January 15th at 6:30.
Okay.
You did ask Andy for Doug and I to talk about
Yes.
topics, and we're going to set aside some time to do that. So, and my understanding is that so the board has a sense of what's coming on a regular basis, as does the public?
Yeah, I've asked each of the committee chairs to talk about what might be upcoming at their meeting so we can find a way to not only maximize our time, but to really try and focus in on some of the big stuff, whether that be driving better attendance to all of the meetings, or potentially bringing some of the committee topics into the board meeting. So I'll be looking out for that. I've already got that for academic standards.
Can I ask one other question? We had spoken, I believe it was Mrs. Sexton that requested a while back, and it got lost in the shuffle, possibly taking the show on the road to go see some other facilities, high schools, middle schools in the area as we're moving forward in this middle school process. Doug and I have talked about that, and I just wanted to get a sense, and you don't have to let me know now, if anybody's still interested in going to tour some other facilities and see what's out there from an architectural standpoint.
Well, related to that, so to some of Mrs. Brooks' comments, in the facilities planning process, having spent some time with an architect, I really had the impression that Newtown Middle School as it exists today, in a number of regards, just didn't meet current building code standards with respect to the width of hallways, or PDE standards with respect to the size of rooms. And so I don't know whether anyone on the board, including Mrs. Brooks, would ever want a tour that would specifically say, look, this particular aspect of the building does not meet. If you were to build a building today like this, you would not get a certificate of occupancy for that building. There's a bunch of aspects of that building that are like that, and is it worth people knowing that they're there?
At Newtown Middle?
At Newtown Middle, right.
I don't see that that's a problem.
Right, I don't know whether there'd be any interest, but it becomes a very focused, like, here's what we're talking about, the fire suppression, the access for disabilities, all of this stuff. It's a bunch of components to the building that if you were to build it today, you wouldn't be allowed to occupy the building. You wouldn't get a permit for that building. You wouldn't be allowed to build the building. So.
I'm confused. Are you talking about touring our building and looking at features of it that would need to be remediated? Or are you looking at going to, because I thought the
They're
question
two
was...
Let me ask you
separate
directly. Are you
discussions.
are you just trying to make me feel better for not wanting to support the new building, so you can show me that that building can't
That's what I was thinking.
Basically
We've
saying-
already decided to build new. I don't need to go see what's wrong with the old.
I'm trying to make you feel better, that
Very
is
nice.
basically
I
it.
feel fine.
You will feel better because if to renovate that building would just be a horror.
But the
It will be a horror. That's why.
Okay,
I
we
respect the
moved past
process.
that.
When you're done,
This
We-
board's
we-
made a
we
decision,
voted.
I'm fine.
What was the request? The request was, do we want to go see other people's buildings,
Right,
right?
but that-
Okay.
Well,
I just
perhaps a
wonder why
building that...
let's go see other people's buildings that don't comply, didn't make any sense to me.
our building, Newtown Middle is what I'm talking about.
Okay, no problem.
I think a
I've seen
good
it.
building to go
Very
see,
nice.
though, would be like Souderton High School. Breslin Ridyard Federa, who's our architect for the Newtown Middle School, designed the
I want to
Souderton
go
High
see a
School.
box with Patty.
So we could go see their utilitarian-type building
Cinder blocks, yes.
with cinder block.
Do they have painted walls or not
Sure.
painted walls?
Utilitarian, a good word.
Yes.
All right, let's keep this moving. I would be in favor of seeing some different options.
Okay.
So we have a finance meeting on the 29th of January. We haven't had one in December, so I would imagine you don't have any updates.
Well, you stole my thunder, the 29th. Some of the things, Bob, are we moving ahead with that RFP that we had discussed on the consultant?
Transportation contract. PFM is supposed to come in to go with our annual plan for refinancing and our bond issues, and our auditors will be presenting our financial reports. So it's a pretty packed meeting.
Excellent. Dr. Foster, I'll ask you to comment on...
No, he didn't answer my question. Are
Oh,
we
I'm
moving
sorry.
ahead with the RFP that we had talked about? I had reviewed an RFP.
Oh, I got, the cash management RFP, I sent it to Mr. Grupp, he had given me comments, and I will tell you, I've been working on the 941 and the W-2s right now, so I didn't get it out to everybody, because I need to look at the dates and see what worked now again, because it's getting later than what I thought it was going
On
to.
the 29th, let's just get the schedule for when you want to put that out to bid and get it back. So on the 29th, we'll have that for...
I will try to send a draft out before the 29th so everyone can look at it.
That'd be great, thank you.
Dr. Foster, any comment on either policy committee or MBIT?
I do on policy. I actually wanted a brief bit of advice from our solicitor. So my impression of board policies is they always cite, for instance, the school code. The bottom line is we're required, whether that policy is there, to follow the laws of the state of Pennsylvania. So my interpretation of our policies has been they're kind of the man on the street, i.e. the board member on the streets interpretation, easy to use access to the law, so that we and the employees working here have something that's more accessible than getting a law degree and trying to read the school code. So is that kind of the general purpose? I mean, our policies cannot supersede state law. We can't grab rights that aren't given.
That's true, yeah.
And so we're really trying to make it easy for us to understand what we're doing. Is that fair?
Well,
We're not trying to recreate the school code.
No,
Right.
but your policies are generally whatever board it was that adopted them thought should be the guideposts for how to operate as a board and how the district should operate as an institution of government.
And so there are aspects to our policy, like our meeting policy, where the state has given us discretion how to run our meetings, and we've written down how we want to use that discretion. But there are many, many of our policies that, to me, read as we're just recapitulating what the school code says. And so some of those policies I look at and I kind of wonder what the value of them is.
That's certainly your prerogative.
Okay.
The policies of the district were developed over a very long period of time.
Right.
But they received intense development and scrutiny back in the 90s.
Right.
And at many districts across the state. And the School Boards Association started to generate a whole catalog of
Right.
proposed those policies. And in many cases,
And we have a
those policies
subscription.
are simply a
We pay for it.
restatement of the school code.
In some cases, the school code says you need to create a policy
Right.
that cites this school code.
That's
Go
right.
figure.
And so, so those kinds of things, so for instance, Dr. Lambert had written that in our audit, and Mr. Reinhardt had written that in another audit, we basically were criticized for not having certain policies in place. So we're required to have board policies sometimes. There's no indication on our policies as to which ones we actually are required to have. So i.e. don't delete me, this one you're required to have. But I would love to delete a lot of policies that really add no value.
We have, at one time we had an anti-nepotism policy,
Right.
which when we looked at it sitting at the table, it was unenforceable because it didn't account for relationships that could exist. We killed that, I think, in one meeting. And there are other policies, many of the policies, I think we've gotten rid of most of them that were created anecdotally. We had policies about how much the food could cost before a board meeting, because apparently there was a problem with that in the early 90s.
Yeah, that's been taken care of. There's no food. Oh.
So,
Anyway,
we've gotten rid of a lot of the anecdotal
it's going to be a
policies.
ton of work to clean up this mess, and you know, we'll just do our best as we can. And again, send your ideas as to what policies. Personally, I would have you weighted towards send your ideas for what policies you'd like to get rid of in terms of create, because whether it's United States federal law or apparently our policies, there's a trend to just accumulate, and it's very hard to whack it back. But I'd like to do that. So send your ideas in. Regarding MBIT, the meeting was canceled for this month. We had the open house last night, and I did not attend. I had a conflict, so I don't know if you had a chance to, yeah. So it sounded from the report that it went fine, and we do have a situation that's completely bewildering to all of us. The missing teacher, Mr. Tully, who's incredibly loved and incredibly talented. He's reported to be a missing person in Philadelphia, and our hearts go out to his family, and we really hope that he can be found.
Was it on the news tonight?
Yes.
He's not saying anything that's not out.
No, it's all in the news. Yeah. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Foster. Any update from the IU, Ms. Sexton?
No meeting in December, we'll be meeting next week.
Okay, we'll move on to final public comment. Is there any final public comment?
My New Year's resolution might be for you to get a sound system so we could hear you. It's really horrible. We never hear anything Derek says. Hardly hear anything Mr. Abramson says. A lot of you just sit back in those chairs, and the microphone is so far away from you that we catch dribs and drabs of what you say. I really think I'd rather be home sometimes so I can listen to the meeting than be here. When you're checking the solicitor to find out whether you have to vote or not for what the administration, I think you also ought to ask the solicitor that if the administration makes a recommendation that all children come out of trailers, and if you go against that and something would happen, is there any kind of liability exposure to the board members because you voted against that recommendation? Ms. Book, I'd like to thank you for bringing that up. I was in that meeting where the last time they brought up this League Gold and the $2 million grant, and I too remember them saying it wasn't for renovation. And it seemed like a lot of pressure for people to vote for a new building rather than to vote for $2 million at that time. But I'm glad you had the discussion tonight, because I learned some things about what's going on. And it said that Newtown Middle is going to be 180,000 square feet, which is a swing of one team. Now, because I've gotten used to Mark speak over the years, I think a swing means that there'll be room for an additional team. Is that correct?
There will be the potential for room for an additional.
Yeah, okay.
It
So,
won't be built that way, but you'll have the potential to add.
yeah, there'll be potential to add at least 150 or 180 more students. Newtown Middle, when we're going to put all the kids inside now, the actual building is like 139 square feet, and Holland Middle is 142,000. So that's an additional 40,000 square feet onto each building. I can understand some of it at Holland because I think we're going to build an auditorium, but I'm really anxious to see where all this, what's going to be in this additional 40,000 square feet. I'm not sure how you're doing the utilization study, even though you said the principals are meeting with the administration. It sounds like they're letting the administration know how they utilize the building, or they're justifying the utilization. What I would like to see happen is that we look at every building as if we're going to put more students in, just as we looked at the buildings on how we could bring people inside. Whether we had to divide a bigger classroom or what we had to do, we should look at it that way in order to take a school offline and save money. And this panel on technology, my understanding of what I heard tonight, that it's about leasing or purchasing or how we're spending the money or the structure or the hardware or maybe some software that we're going to buy, but it isn't about how technology is being used and integrated into the classroom. And that is sorely lacking because we eliminated that position quite a while ago. I remember his name was King. I think it was Larry King had that position. And I really think we desperately need an integration technology educational specialist to keep track of. Who's doing BYOD? How are we going to measure its success? Who has access? What teachers doing fabulous things could maybe go over that entire curriculum? I think it's a hodgepodge. There are a lot of people doing really well, and there are a lot of people who still haven't signed on to the technology bandwagon. So I don't want students to get technology dependent on who they got this year for their teacher or what building they happen to be in Council Rock. I want it to be as uniform as we can make it with giving teachers room for innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, Jason Funk, Wrightstown Elementary. First off, I appreciate the fact that the school board is looking to the solicitor to get confirmation. Again, I will point out, it specifically states, as someone on the board mentioned, that there needs to be minutes plainly and clearly supporting the decision to reconfigure, plainly and clearly. So I'm fairly confident that there will need to be a vote. In fact, all my research in other similar reconfigurations throughout Pennsylvania, every single one of the school districts that I researched included a vote from the board on reconfiguration, just so you're aware. And I'd also like to get back to the plan, or the fact that the plan, again, I believe, violates the rights of parents and taxpayers under equal protection of the Constitution. There actually is a case, well, didn't go through court because eventually there were some changes, and I'll speak to that. But in 2009, a lawsuit was filed against Connellsville School District in western Pennsylvania. The school district, much like this district, tried to reconfigure 2 of their 5 elementary schools to a separate configuration of grade levels. The lawyer who filed that, one of the reasons they did file that, specifically stated that it was a violation of the Constitution under equal protection. Eventually, a judge issued a temporary order making that reconfiguration temporarily putting it to a halt. Eventually, after that, the school district rescinded its plan to reconfigure. With this being said, I would again appreciate that the school board, as well as the solicitor, understand exactly what it's doing if you decide to move forward in such a plan. Because I can promise you, the folks in the community, we will be doing everything we need to look into the possibility of doing a similar type of action. Thank you.
Any other further public comment?
Jenny Schottmiller, Wrightstown. I kind of expect a vote also eventually, not just because I think it sounds like the law requires it, because it's kind of a big deal to change the grade structure and the number of school transitions that students are going to go through. Personally, just speaking only for myself, not any other parents or groups, I don't mind being a K-4 school. I would really encourage that we look at this as a temporary solution to a space issue, however. If you look at the research on grade transitions and grade configurations, there aren't really any studies that would support 7 and 8 as our middle school. But we do it really well in Council Rock, and we have really good reasons why we do it well. And I think one of the reasons we do it well is because it's consistent throughout the district. If you could imagine, if we had one of our middle schools was a 5 through 8, which some school districts do, some good school districts do, and the other two were 7 to 9, it would be kind of hard to wrap your mind around when we're going to make a programming change. And maybe the 7th graders all learn the same math concepts, but when you think about band or clubs or other things that support education that make this a great school district, it would be really hard for education directors, administrators, board members, and parents to do something uniform across the district if you have different grade structures for different students. So I think if you look around at some of the really good school districts that do K-4, even K-3, we could learn something from them, and we could probably create a really good K-4 program for Wrightstown. And if we can do that and make it great, make it Council Rock, make it something that really fits in this school district, then I can't see why we wouldn't do that for all of our schools and save even more money by concentrating 5th and 6th graders and having more of those classes be 30 students, which is what we're allowed to do. If we did it and we said, you know what, it's not as great, then I think that we would look at those Wrightstown students and say, you know what, we want to bring you up to K-6, and whatever that means we need to do with the space issues, we're going to bring you back to K-6. So I think let's do it, fine. Personally, I know some aren't okay with it, I'm okay with it, but I think it's a step. It's a step to then see what's next, because I think that one of the most important aspects of parity in the school district is grade structure. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen.
Amy McIntyre, Newtown. I am not okay with it. I am not okay with Wrightstown being a K-4 in a K-6 school district. I am okay with 5th and 6th grade centers. I love the idea. I think Council Rock would create some really amazing programs that are unique to that age student and would find ways to make the K-4 experience special when losing 2 grades. I am not okay with one school learning how to do this on its own in a K-6 district and struggling through it. So when there's very little efficiencies realized, and they're at a disadvantage transitioning into an existing K-6 school, it's not right. So I know that you all hear from some Wrightstown families, but overwhelmingly, if you attended the meetings held at our school, the community is against this. They do not like the idea of our school being something other than what is the district standard. So look forward to hearing what the solicitor has to say, and if there is a vote at the next meeting, and I do appreciate the board hearing what Jason said and looking at that. So see you in a couple weeks. Thanks a lot.
Any further public comment? Anything from the solicitor?
There will be an executive session tonight to review a personnel matter. I don't know how long, but...
And is there any final board comment? Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.